What is that?
It's funny the way it is.
Yep, this will be the third one.
When you go on Christine's program?
Monday night.
Monday was
Transformers?
no, they,
And buries
people
them
turn the
beyond
hand,
their
and
half
it
hour.
strips the gear.
The rocket.
So we're gonna have to put a bubble
I was
over
at Democratic up in Lake Mary last
Well, maybe they had a
night,
bump
where
in
all
the
county
cycle
seven
was
Or
was
there's you can
but I got
have 4 plastic
by
buckets and
noon
just
or
put a plastic.
I have five
This
stations
was where I have a
all
noise.
over Lake
And
Mary,
the plastic bucket is about a half inch
fishing business.
clearance, and then force through.
To the other things that I've done since the
Shall we get on with the docket? Page 1?
Mr. Mayor, item 9 will have to be taken up first because it is the vacation that allows us to proceed on item 5.
Item 9 will have to precede item 5. Well, let's see. It's unusual.
Is it kind of pre-committing us a little bit? I mean, suppose you vacate the road and you don't adopt 5. What happens? Reconsider.
That's really good.
But you've already vacated it. What do you do? Take it
No,
back?
like he said, reconsider.
Yeah, but the guy might say, now I want to get paid for it because it's mine. You know
Well, as
what I mean?
long as we don't close the hearing, we're going to handle item 9 and leave the hearing open, and then go to 5. The attorney wouldn't let us reconsider unless we
Still reconsider the act.
after closing.
Well, we could actually close the hearing and so forth, take our action contingent on the results of 9, and when we get to 9, take it in normal order. What's wrong with that? Let's get sneaky about it, huh? Okay.
I don't know what you I don't know what you fellas are planning to do
Well, just
today.
say something, man. Don't just take it.
Very simple.
What?
Try 9 first. When you get through with 9, then try 5.
Well, what's the purpose of a hearing if we've made up our minds?
I suggest in the future when we have this kind of a problem, why don't they put them on docket numbers?
Right.
Well, that's
Can we hear them
part of the
concurrently?
real problem.
Can we hear them concurrently? Is there any problem there?
Both hearings.
No, is it?
Yeah, both hearings. And both been notified.
Why don't somebody move to put them back to back? 9 comes right after 5, or 9 comes before 5.
This is what we are suggesting.
Back to back.
Take 9 first, 5 second.
Okay.
Because of the same project?
Now that we got that settled.
All right. I saw another major administrative change the other day. Did you notice the color of the trash trucks has been changed? If you go to change the color of the fire trucks, let me know. Well, yeah, I'd like to have a vote on it.
Item number 10.
On page 2, item 10.
I think the councilman from the district ought to be complimented for getting a bid 5.6% above the estimates on the sewer going in front of his house.
You know, and there ought to be a big area assessment right at that cliff place.
You know, Jack said, "Hey, you do anything for me for this election? What are you trying to do? Kill me, pal? With friends like you?"
You got a haircut. Anything else on page 2?
Yeah, it was way.
Quick 5
Page 3?
If you had a big sewer going through your district.
Yeah. Oh, they have.
I'd certainly like to, on item 11, Your Honor, I'd certainly like to compliment that Hatted Construction Company. I notice they do pretty good on bidding with the city. I notice that they certainly are doing a lot in all of the city, and they must have some pretty good estimators to come in there 14% below.
Very confident.
Very good or very bad, Ella?
Well, it's the Colina del South, so I'll take a sign.
Yeah, maintenance contractors, as you recall, came in.
It's real fine, everything out there.
This is a little business over 30.
Couldn't we have a groundbreaking ceremony there about September the
Competition
20th.
was pretty keen on it, actually. The bids for
Mr. Manager.
about $1,000.
Mr. Manager, on item 11, couldn't your public relations outfit arrange a groundbreaking ceremony for this gardener's facility at Colina del Sol on September the 20th?
The staff opened the Adams Bridge when we were out of town, remember?
If you'd like it, we'll arrange it, sir.
Man, I don't think we can do without it.
Be a shelf for potted plants.
Yep.
The potted what?
Potted plants.
Oh.
Yeah, and on that vacation in the street, could you have a big ceremony out there for Al? Cutting the vacation ribbon? We've never done that before, Al, but we could try it.
Hitch has always gone out on a vacation. No, that didn't
Anything else on page 3?
Like I told Johnny Rose, I understand you're trying to take the fifth.
Page 4?
On 105,
Page 4, 105?
yes, on 105, this is in regards to near the new arena. We're making a study on this. What's the time schedule on this?
Well, they're given, I think, 6 months to do it. I've talked to Gerhardt now, trying to speed that up because Dr. Goebel has evidently agreed that it can be speeded up.
Go back.
It says that some of our funds are predicated from here towards our new stadium.
Yep.
This is coordinated. We're aware of this, I'm sure.
This is the entire area, not just the city-owned land, right?
Well, primarily in the city-owned land, they're obviously going to have to consider the surrounding properties. And
We own most of the land anyway.
Not most of them, we own a good hunk of them.
Everything from Frontier over. The only difference is between the strip between Midway and Frontier going down.
Jack, an economic study like this, they have to reach way, way, way out, because if there's properties within a half a mile or 2 or 3 miles that would be similar, well, it'll be in competition. They have to recognize it. So it really reaches out almost all over the city, the information they have to work with. Origin destinations, the times to get there, freeway accesses, the surplus or lack of types of businesses.
Length of signal changes.
One thing that, Your Honor, one thing that pleases me about that study is that it'll certainly take in the proximity of Mission Valley and Mission Bay and all of this in between, and what the sports center will do. So it looks to me like it'll tie all those 3 in, which I think would be very advantageous for us to know what it'll do.
Well, we've already got a survey on that. There's the Breitbart ran one for the sports arena and the relationship and so forth. This is what, to gain the highest and best use of the ground and income, etc.
The balance of our city on land.
I'm wondering if we're going to make available, my understanding is Breitbart had to have a feasibility study for qualified for bonding, and they may just have a whole bunch of information on the utilization of that land, especially the commercial, that we might be able to use.
Well, this contract is based on the usage of information presently available. We have originally estimated a good deal more in cost than this is. We hope to avoid any duplication of effort of work already done. Simply go on from what we already had.
The $12,000 soil study, has that been made?
No, but this is being made in connection with the Breitbart deal, and we don't feel it's necessary to duplicate that. We might have to make some spot checks. This will decide on after we get the information on the other part.
Walter, could you give us a figure? I think it's quite an interesting thing as to the cost of these feasibility studies, because basically what they're boiling down to is, I know that you had the major one for downtown San Diego that was purchased by San Diegans Inc. Then there was another one which was less expensive because of the information and duplication of information for Mid-City, and then La Jolla is doing the same thing. And I think Jack touched on the question: what's by keeping the economic surveys updated by these various groups, what is this saving us? Instead of, sure, if we hadn't had an economic survey, any of these others, what would some of these things cost? And we
There's a whole theory behind the joint project between the city, county, and chamber on the economic study.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, when you go out and the job's been done 90% somewhere else, when the figures are available for them to go in, we get a lot better people and they can move in and do the job more quickly. If this was the first one, well, it'd take a long time to get it done. Really tight.
But I mean, it's updating is the theory behind this project that the chamber's sponsoring. Keeping it current. Yes, for Samson.
May I ask, Your Honor, 106, how does that agreement, what is this now? It says same as last year except dollar amount. Does it mean the dollar amount by the state of California is increased, or the dollar amount by the city?
The dollar amount's identical with last year too.
Well, then the annotation on my docket is wrong.
No, I thought we ended up with last year. What did we end up this year?
44,000.
145.
I wonder if I could please get the answer to my question.
As far as I know, the annotation is an error. The amount's $44,555. The year before last was a slightly different amount. Last year and this one are identical.
And what is the total cost? I'm talking about, is the state of California paying half
It's
of it?
about 50% this amount. I'm not sure of the exact, as I recall, it's around $90,000 to run the program.
So then the agreement with the state is $44,000 and some dollars that the city of San Diego will receive toward whatever that cost is.
That's right.
But you don't know what the total
The
cost is.
total cost about $90,000, and this is about 50% of it.
Oh,
107, what are the changes?
107, page 5.
Well, this involved some unstable material where the fill had to be removed,
Okay.
increased our,
Just thought maybe a street was open or closed.
Phil had to, what Phil had to be removed? Who's Phil?
well, this on the street area, and there had to be some unstable material removed from the area in order to keep it from sliding. You have a map.
Which is the area in question?
Old automobile bodies.
There are two areas that Phil was going to be removed for utilization and construction road here and here. This is the unstable area. Instead of removing the 80,000 cubic yards of fill from these two areas, it will be removed from here and the amount of fill.
Hey, Walt, on something like that, are we always liable to these so-called increases when they have
Great deal more work.
taken a survey in order to make a bid?
Oh, yeah, we can't hold the contractors on unstable soil conditions. I mean, the contractor could perform according to the cross-sections set forth on the plan and everything, and we'd have the job, but then the thing would fail on us, so. The only thing we're trying to do here is to insure against failure.
How about the assessment district? Do they pay this or is it
Yes.
Yeah.
How can you do that now?
real simple?
All it is within 10%. Final figure.
Well, is it or isn't it?
Well,
Well, the answer is maybe, and that's final.
Is it still within 10% or
Have
no?
the deal or get rid of that.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, the whole deal's $1.5 million. 1%.
Right hand doesn't know what left hand's doing, the poor guy in the middle, but this just indicates.
we had exactly 15, 16,000.
Change order to our tax.
3,000 feet, let's go down 8 feet. We'll
Why don't you build a city for it?
we'll bid it to, the way it was designed and engineered, but you got this problem, you want to spend the 15,000.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty good business again, who's guaranteeing the condition of the soil, like a title company, when a guy goes in for $1,000, he guarantees the soil's stable, and you pick it up, put it in. Sure stay away from Frontier, wouldn't you?
Yes.
We'll check out there. I was told that this would be spread as part of the assessment. Which of course will go primarily against the land developer there.
What's the status
It's in
of
front of
that?
his area.
67% of it, I think, gets assessed against him.
This is a dirt pile, we were gonna get it such a reduced price. You know,
What's the, Mr. Attorney, what's the status
How much
of
does it
that
save and how much this costs?
suit that was brought against us on the area assessment of Novelist Street?
First, there were three causes of action. The first cause of action we demurred to and was sustained without leave to amend. Second cause of action, there was an overrule of the demur, and the third cause of action, there was a demur with leave to amend, and the judge is now reconsidering his overruling of the demur, and possible, we don't know, he might sustain the second cause of action, the demur on the second cause of action. If so, that would
What does that mean?
Yeah, what is that? I don't know, a bit more than when you started.
Well,
Now, are we in trouble?
No.
in effect, we are not in trouble.
Whoa,
Thank-
I see.
Okay.
That's in my language.
Okay.
The road, the progress on the road and everything, just continuing to go ahead, right?
That's right.
Bulldozing over the natives.
There was no injunctive action too. There was no injunctive
No.
action too.
How about a conjunctive action? No?
Anything else? Page 5. This 113 is listed on a communications on here rather than procedural wise. What's the action?
On what?
On 113. Comes back to it as a communication.
don't we have about three choices on this?
Well, you can do a number of things with it.
Formal action, if council recalls, you simply asked their advice and that's magnified.
It was not a public hearing down
So you
below.
abandon it, or you
can file it.
order a resolution?
You can set it up for a hearing, you
Set it
can
up for
refer it
public-
back to the planning commission for a public hearing.
Yeah, the information
Refer
I
to
got.
a hearing in the
You could file.
Set it for next week along with the other one?
Set up a hearing in La Jolla on that, huh?
Have a
Yeah.
council conference, pick one.
You know, 5 pounds.
How much blood does the guy want to let, huh?
I think the best thing is filing.
I don't know what it says yet.
Yeah, it's right before you.
I haven't read it. Here it is. What's it say?
It says that they didn't find an emergency exists. Actually, what it says is that we can make a decision up planning commission whether or not emergency exists.
As far as they're
Now,
concerned, they
Edward-
don't put emergency.
And I asked about the council hearing this and not sending it back to planning commission, and was told that on an ordinance of this kind, it had to be heard to the planning commission first,
Not an emergency.
unless we declare it an emergency.
I think it would be, in as much as there was not a hearing down below, if you determine that no emergency exists in accordance with the communication, that the proper way to do it would, if you want to have a hearing, would be to start with a hearing down below, public hearing.
This is more exasperating than all get out. We chase them back and forth 2 or 3 times.
Well, there's no
Resolve
reason,
it one way or
there's
the
no
other.
reason for it. If it's an emergency, it's our business. If it's planning or zoning, it should go through planning. Now, let's just stand up and be counted. Is there an emergency or isn't there? You might pussyfoot
Quit
around.
chasing them around the building. Ready. Page 6.
Yeah, there is a unanimous consent item, but it needs
What's
to be
unanimous?
called
Yes,
for you.
you should have it.
No, I have it here, in the hunting area that we, the ordinance that we had last week on the docket. And one of the questions I'd asked was whether or not this new development had been considered and been deleted. And apparently we were talking about the same development, it had not. What this ordinance does is there's another piece of University City been developed since last year's ordinance. And what this does is change it to delete the hunters from shooting these people's backyard, yeah.
The kids are
It reduces the
kids are out of season anyway.
Well, the cats apparently aren't, and
What's
they're
wrong with
shooting
that?
in the backyard.
Your Honor, The city manager reported to us that there was the same agreement as before, and that, because I remember asking the question, and that it had been checked out and everything was fine to allow that hunting in that area. It was all it was controlled, I believe.
Well, a resolution permitting the hunting calls for number one, use of shotgun only. Requires a distance from housing, I forget, it's 200 yards, 150 yards, 200 yards. But the problem was there was not the development on the ridge overlooking the valley there last year. Most of this development took place during the last year, and as a result, we are getting numerous complaints from people living on the ridge overlooking the valley there of hunting in the valley. And with some reason, it's noisy, it's a nuisance to them. I don't think the hazard is great. Our police people don't think the hazard is great, but they concur in this new alignment as being necessary to eliminate the nuisance problems and the inconvenience it caused the residents there by people hunting.
Very disheartening to look down and see a bunch of birds laying around, flopping around if they don't kill properly. It's terrible.
There you go again. Registering firearms and not communists.
Well, last week we made a decision on that, and the
modification
of the
territory. The territorial.
Just
That's
delaying
correct.
this development.
The map.
Yeah.
Let's see the map.
There's a map there, it's a new map.
Is there any opposition by the planning department to this? I'm just trying to be fair.
The area deleted is in green here.
And how about that wildlife conservation or let's see, who is that that's so interested in it? We had a man appearing here last week.
Del Mar area.
Annexation area.
The Del Mar Tourist there?
Has this been checked out by the people that want to continue hunting?
East of the freeway. Del Mar Terrace, Del Mar Heights on the other side.
No, sir.
Well, we're going to get a lot of requests.
Who's got a petition from Ducks Unlimited? The Ducks signed it.
There was a man here last week, the Fish and Game Commissioner or something.
Is this introduction only?
No, this is a resolution.
This is a resolution.
Right, it's not an ordinance.
This is not a legislative action, is that correct?
And the green, you used to be able to hunt in the green, and now you won't be able to.
Well, there's development on it.
What?
There's development on it.
Is the ordinance before?
It's a resolution.
Was there an ordinance before?
No, you have a municipal ordinance which allows you to restrict these areas by resolution.
This keeps going. I think this is probably about the last year we're going to have hunting. If it builds up in the next year, it's just like this.
I understand out in that district it's been pretty good hunting lately.
I can't understand then why, if that's the case, why it's legal.
Yeah.
What's the urgency?
Well, because it's the total area until we take action.
Yeah, the problem started this last weekend, Mayor, when
the day the
hunting
ordinance
season
went in.
opened.
That's good enough reason. Okay. We don't allow hunting in South Bay anymore?
No, we've not a permitted it down there.
Proposed kind of air in Mission Bay High School.
Alrighty.
Any other questions on that?
The league notice is on the docket.
Oh, sorry.
Very little attendance, and if you have to be on water, it should be very good.
Which league is this?
League of California Cities.
Not the national.
Your Honor, could I bring up one, or would you rather have a report on that board meeting yesterday, please?
Casa Bay Cal League?
Yeah. Well, the question that they were investigating is to go back to meeting every other time at the central location, the alternating between the northern and southern part of the county. Basic discussion yesterday.
Ricky, Want to get on to the conference docket or adjourn? Pleasure.
I'd like to adjourn and catch up on the telephone calls and the mail myself. Adjourn.
Second?
Don't have anything on the top.
Nothing ready to go on conference? Okay, we'll adjourn. Oh, we want to have a conference?
And it will be then approved by an individual in the department.
Good morning.
It's on a city forum.
Who had a baby?
So you got 7 now?
There's a new story.
Oh.
There's a new George Story Jr. George had a baby.
Okay, George.
That's right, George.
Well, let's talk to cigars, boy.
Come on, George.
No wonder you're late this morning. It's a story by George. That is a story. Oh, boy or girl?
It's a boy.
Good.
It's not George Jr.
I say good.
You say good. You say bad. In China, they give away the girls. When I was a young boy in a Catholic school, we used to save our pennies up in the mite box to buy the Chinese babies. Because they said over there, the Chinese, when they had a daughter, they couldn't work, so they give them away.
Well, that's
No,
your
point of view.
The boys just see tied aboard the Chinese guns, little girls were running around free.
Tom, see if you're still living over there. It'd be the biggest giveaway program in your case. Free of China.
You know, if you associate with Walsh and Hahn, you get awful sick of cigars.
I'll try.
Round what?
That was a good bank shot. Haven't played pool in a long time.
Getting back to the insurance and bond, but so forth.
Well, let's start the meeting and approve the minutes first.
So moved.
Do you have nothing? Okay.
All in favor?
That's four of them.
Contrary? Motion carried. All right.
Okay. We do have the other ordinances. The only thing I'm looking at is, isn't it good to have all the insurance and bonding in one package instead of having many sheets of different codes? The idea of pulling the code down in size and scope, well, not scope, but just pulling it down and just sheer volume.
Well, in the case of bonds, each bonds are written for specific purposes, whereas insurance is written to cover a variety of risks, and insurance itself might perhaps be done this way. But bonds, each section, if you have a bond, has to spell out what that bond has to cover. For example, in blasting, you have to protect against. We don't require bonds for blasting. Well, in moving,
How come we don't?
In moving and demolition, for example, moving bond, that bond requires that a person complete certain repairs, alterations, foundations in accordance with plans and specifications that he files with the building inspector. The demolition bond, on the other hand, requires that a person comply with the provisions of Section 9144, which has to do with all the different things you have to do for cleanup.
Well,
Excuse me, I'm not too familiar with this. Why don't we have Walt give us some background on this person and start asking technical questions for my benefit anyway.
Well, the reason this matter was brought to the council attention was that the filing of these bonds often went to a location that wasn't the place where the people were dealing with, and we've tried to amend that so that the filing is tied into the place that people normally go. John, you can add anything you want here. Actually, these sections fall within our code in the part of the code that deals with the item being covered by bond or by insurance. And to put them all in one section separate from that, I think would make it more difficult for people to follow. I don't know whether I misread you on that or not.
If we pull the city code out right now and we want to look at something in bonding, insurance, and indemnifying, why we'd find it all together. Is that correct?
yes or no?
No, if you wanted to look under, house moving, you'd find that covered in that section of the code.
Uh-huh.
And these tie, as I read this thing, doing this right to those very sections, and actually all we're doing is changing where they're to be filed.
I see, okay.
My understanding, Laura, is that right in now you have in the mill, there's some real changes in your demolition requirements. Because the way the thing is
Yeah, it's
written
being
right,
worked on, I agree.
right now, the way it's written, it's a tremendous, lobby for professional, house wreckers, because the procedures are written so that a guy can't take down an unsightly mess without going through the expense of some of these guys. And that shouldn't be right. And that's what Herb was telling me about it.
Being
It
worked
made really
on, I'm
make
not
sense.
sure where we stand on it at this moment.
Well, this is a real good step in the right direction. I was just, the reason I was fishing for the question, and I think this is a follow-up on this thing on this bonding check procedure where a person's running all over City Hall to get something done, and this eliminates it. I think this is great. What I'm asking is, how many other areas do we have this in, or are we pretty close to the end of this particular subject with this change?
I think that we're at the end of that particular subject, isn't that correct? Because the changes that are made here, already are present as applied to the other.
The other bonds and insurance sections in the code already provide that the bond or insurance be filed with the city. And that's what these sections do. They change it from filing with the clerk or the police department to file with the city. And that way, by an administrative regulation, then they will be, each department will then retain these bonds and policies in their own files for their own reference.
Are we gonna be subject to any more documentaries as a result of this, of the guy starting a new little business or something, or trying to do something, and then the picture going from door to door to door?
Well, let's tell her Charlie and ask him.
This should make it simpler for them, that's the purpose of it. So
It
you
might
have
turn out where I
to
go,
go to two
Most
different
of them
places.
used to go to you, Phil, right? And then you'd have to root them.
Well, what would happen is if somebody was going to take out a permit, the enforcement agency, which they was the fire department, so they'd have to come up to me, file their bond or insurance policy, we give them the receipt for it, then they have to take it back to the enforcement department to get the permit. What we've done now, what this does now is a guy goes to get a permit, and he files the bond or the required insurance policy with the person that he's taking the permit out. And we eliminate all enforcement.
I took a permit on, I forget what the heck it was even for, and I had to go from the inspection to the city attorney, to the clerk, back to the,
Moving bond, Jack, moving bond, I'll tell you what it is.
Well, this is because
Yeah.
the reason
In case you don't remember.
this has been that a lot of insurance policies have exclusionary clauses. And to simply get a certificate of insurance does not mean that the basic policy may not exclude that for which the certificate is being issued. So the attorney has to look at the basic policy to be sure there's no exclusionary clause. Specific case in point was the La Jolla. Helen will remember this if anyone will. They were going to have a fireworks out in La Jolla, and they sent in a certificate of insurance, and Dick Curran looked at the policy, and the basic policy excluded fireworks coverage, and so they held up the La Jolla fireworks until 7 o'clock before they finally got the thing squared away. And this is the reason it goes to the
July
attorney's
9th.
office.
No, the fireworks went off on time.
Yeah, but just
What was really funny was that there was an insurance man and an attorney on the committee. One of these.
that's why
Well,
it goes to the attorney.
Taking this a step further now, naturally assume this is the intent is to smooth things out, and you do have things such as the fireworks display, and you mentioned certain amounts of limits. What provisions do we have, for example, for letters of credit? Actually, a $5,000 insurance policy just covers for a limit of $5,000. Now, to expedite and move things along, if the city would accept letters of credit for the equal amount, the city, it would seem to me, would be protected, and it would be much faster. I'd happen to run into several situations where it'd just be a lot simpler, and if you've got money sitting in a savings account drawing interest, you can get letters of credit on things, and so if somebody says, we want a $5,000 bond, fine, give them a $5,000 letter of credit, and here it is. Now, what's been done in that direction?
Well, that's a brand new subject.
Well, we're right on insurance, and we're talking about protection of the city against these dangers, apparently.
Well, evidently you're thinking in terms of applying the same sort of procedure that we have in our subdivision. Section 102.0702.
We allow this by this ordinance in those instances where this is a practical deal, as I read it, under, for example, a performance bond for contracts here. We provide that bond or cash deposits can be made.
A letter of credit is considered as cash as far as the city is concerned, correct?
Ed?
No.
No?
Well, we have in this
Again, Waller. I would like making a 5-minute speech when you finish it, the guy says no.
So let me give you the ones that are covered here. In lieu of faithful performance bond, you can deposit with the city a sum of money, form of cash, certified check, timed certificate of deposit, assignment of a savings account, pledge of a savings account. Well, where's the part about the letter of credit that's in here somewhere? At least all of those are included under the subdivision. Oh, in the event that the subdivider desires to submit an instrument of credit, an irrevocable letter of credit or escrow agreement in lieu of a faithful performance bond or a cash deposit with the city, said instrument of credit, letter of credit, or escrow agreement may be drawn by a responsible financial institution regulated by state and federal law, subject to the approval of the council in a sum determined from the approved estimate of the cost of said improvement and or land development by schedule and so on. Okay. There are provisions in here as in addition to your check savings accounts, which are...
But they have to wait for approval of the council on each specific instance?
Yeah, well, this is the thing I'm talking about.
Why would that be?
To meet the requirements, why do they need it?
Well, this is a bond for improvement on subdivision.
Yeah.
You're talking about.
I'm talking about any
When you approve the
bond.
subdivision map, you put up the bond, you have to say that you have coverage
Well,
to ensure the construction of the improvements required by the
As
map.
long as it's concurrent.
So it's concurrent,
Yeah.
but this is no great
Well,
problem
but
for the
no,
developer.
here's the problem that I'm looking at. Number one, the city wants to make sure they have their clammy little dukes on some money to make sure that this job is going to be finished, right? Now, in lieu of cash, they have been willing apparently to accept some acceptable insurance companies, correct? Or bonding companies.
They're bond.
Is that a fair assumption? All right, now just as easily as you can bring in an insurance policy from an acceptable company, I would think that a letter of credit that's irrevocable until the city gives permission at the end of the job, it should be just as simple. You shouldn't have to run all over City Hall to do it. Now, otherwise, it's a make-work project for insurance companies. You want some piddling little bond, what's it, about $15 a
$15
thousand?
a thousand. That's a good point.
So why do we? This is just another one of these things that appears to the applicant he's being held back, he's dodging and running around.
Well,
And if it amounts to any money, why you're losing your interest on your financing. On your pull the money out to use a cash bond, you're losing your interest.
some of these, it seems to be, I think you could apply this practically to some of the others of it you could not, because they are primarily insurance requirements on liability interests, and this, I would think, the putting up of letter of credit is something wouldn't be the proper way of handling it. For example, with fireworks, you require an insurance coverage.
Well, let's put it this way: if you got insurance up to $100,000, if I'm willing to give you a letter of credit that's irrevocable until the liability's over,
Insurance is different than bonding.
Yeah, I think we're getting into two fields here. Both are covered in here, and when it's insurance, I think you're.
Well, insurance, I think, can only be covered by insurance. That's one thing, because you got to have the liability up to a great amount. But on bonding, that's an amount of money that they're bonding that is available to complete the job, which is not insurance. but each $1,000 costs you $15. So say you have a $10,000 job. Well, then it costs you $150 just to come in and say that you somewhere there's this amount of money. Well, what Harry's saying is that why doesn't an individual have a chance to go to the bank, get a letter of credit, and set up a system with the bank so they freeze the funds for that amount of money?
Well, we obviously wouldn't oppose that because we're already providing for cash deposits, so certainly the letter of credit would be just as good.
But by it not being mentioned, Walter, by it not being mentioned in your ordinance, then various people looking this over in a position of responsibility will say, well, the council adopted this and they consider things rather thoroughly and they didn't put it in here, so they must not want it. Now we are considering it, and if we want it, then we think it's right and it'll do a better job and it doesn't hurt anyone and it helps, then I think it should be in here, and that's the reason I bring it up at this time. To adopt this ordinance, then come back and do it again. I don't like to hold anything up because this is a real good step in the right direction, but if we're taking a 3/4 step and we can take a full step, this is important. And a lot of this is, you can have law all over the place, but if the people who are working with it don't understand it, or they think that this is the original portion of it, why, I think we should make mention of it so that we can do it, because all we're really interested in with this is the protection of the city, isn't that correct? And if they can assure us of protection of the city, what do we care?
Well, offhand, I can't think of any reason to prohibit this type of arrangement. There may be some practical difficulties. I don't know whether that would be.
Well, why don't we continue this and
Let me ask one question.
meet with a couple of banks?
What happens with a letter of credit in bankruptcy?
The money's committed, I think.
Money is
Take that out.
just like an escrow. When you have a letter of credit that's frozen, just like it's an escrow, you can't touch it.
The protection's there, as far as the effect upon the city is concerned.
Seems to me if this is applied to the performance type of bonding situation, then there's no problem at all, and I think that's what you've intended
Well,
to apply to.
I don't necessarily go along with what Jack has said as far as insurance companies. I think we should discuss it, because I think if someone is large enough to be self-insured, and it's all relative, if you got a $1 billion corporation, why, it's almost ridiculous when you talk about a $10,000 policy, unless they want to do it.
Let's mention here, printing all our insurance, we're talking about $100,000.
Okay.
10,
Well, Mr. Scheidel, one of the practical considerations with letters of credit have been in the past that many people who are in the moving business, who are in the coupon business and so forth, or who submit bid bonds, have a bid bond on file, which is a continuing bond, so that they're covered for every job, that they don't have to bring in a letter of credit every time they want to move a damn house, or they don't have to bring in a letter of credit for every time they want to bring in bid a piece of thing in. So as a very practical consideration, people who constantly do business with the city do put up a 1-year continuing bid bond, which covers or bond which covers their total activities for the year. And this is one as a practical reason why a lot of people wouldn't elect to have a letter of credit. But on the other hand, it does not mean that a letter of credit wouldn't be just as good for an individual who might want to do it just once.
Well, I certainly understand that cash, in some circumstances, can be a real simple thing. I also understand that the insurance, whether it be or a bond on a one-time move, might be the best thing to do under certain circumstances. In other circumstances, all I'm saying is let's broaden it as broad as we can, because all we're really interested in is the safety of the city. Now, if there are 100 ways of doing it, and it's not difficult to do, and it makes a more flexible package, then all this does is tends to cut the cost of the person who's doing some development, and all the added costs that you get in on any development ultimately either reduce the amount of development you're going to have or raise the costs, the ultimate price, which cuts your market down. All I'm saying is if everything that we have in the city tends to reduce the costs of improvements and developments and make it easier, you're going to have more development. Just that simple.
The procedure on a letter of credit would have to be well established because, for example, you get a letter of credit when you travel and you have a savings account and you get a letter of credit to cover maybe half or all of your savings account. And then if you use any of that letter of credit, it's endorsed on the back the amount, and your letter of credit is reduced by each endorsement as you draw from it. So if they deposit a letter of credit with the city, they would have to deposit the whole instrument with the city, and it would have to be a one-time letter of credit for this particular purpose.
Well, they have form.
Well, the earmarking would definitely is the major consideration.
You reach a point where it becomes more economical to get the full year coverage on a bonding basis on a bidding, then go to the letter of credit routine. You have a lot of jobs and so on. But the thing that I think Harry's hitting at, which is a real good point, is the little guy wants to put in a sidewalk, has to put up a $500 in cash to cover this. Well, it might encourage more people to go to just get a letter of credit from their bank at $500 and there complete the sidewalk.
Interestingly enough, we have recently an increasing use of these savings accounts, passbooks.
Are you turning the passbook?
Yeah.
Well, that don't mean anything. I can turn in a passbook
Well,
and
they
go draw all my money out of the savings account.
The bank knows about it.
There's an assignment that goes along with it.
Oh, okay. Well,
This is one of the practical limitations. The only safe we have in the city now is one down in the treasurer's office, which is about like this. And for developers, there are relatively few subdivisions compared to the literally hundreds of persons getting permits for demolition and relocation. And when you have all these people's passbooks there, this creates one security problem.
You can rent one from the county. They've got an extra one over there.
I think the point I was trying to make on a performance bond basis, we see no problem at all. To try to work in a letter of credit or something to cover an insurance deal, I think you open the door to a whole lot of problems.
Well,
Number one, when there is a loss, how do you handle it then? When you have an insurance company, they carry the thing through, then somebody's going to have to determine whether we use part of this to pay
Who's
somebody.
going to be the adjuster on a letter of credit, which is a substitute for an insurance policy?
Well, you could never do it for a substitute for insurance.
I might
You
mention.
could for a bond.
Good idea, Harry. But
I might mention that we have adjusters working all day long. They call them building inspectors. And you come out and that's done, or by God, you take care of it, or we hit you with notify your bonding company. Now, this is the way it works, believe me.
Anything else?
Well, this is, then, as I understand it, this is more of an administrative procedure, and as far as the letter of credit thing, I assume that you will have to get a form similar to the standardized form that you use with all insurance companies for bonding procedures, and when they use that city-approved form, why then it doesn't have to go through the attorney's office to be checked. And you're going to go into the letter of credit form, of which responsible financial institutions will have them available, or a person can pick them up and take them through their institution, have them fixed, and this will work. Is that correct?
What will have to be done, if these are to be approved by laymen in the departments rather than our office, is one, that it be on an approved city form, and then
By an approved institution.
and all of the banking institutions in town, at least in town, would have to agree that this would be an acceptable form. And then in each case where you would get a bond or an assignment of a savings account or a letter of credit that is on something other than a city form, then I don't think the layman in the department should be
I would agree with that.
burdened with the responsibility of approving it.
Well, this is a great incentive for them to use the city form. In short, you can do it the short way by using a standardized form. If you want to use your own form, well, you're going to run the gamut. I think it's good.
You don't see any problem of changing and using some wording in here that clearly permits letter credit savings book as far as performance bonds.
But it's something that'll have to be, it's gonna require, some time to develop, because, we're gonna have to deal with people other than people in the city, on this,
Okay.
to, get
Or
approval.
you crack the ice with one bank and they'll all do it because they don't want to give the other bank an advantage. They're just that way. Any further discussion on this?
Yeah, we might point out, this legislation is presently on the books. The changes are those that are indicated in the report here, primarily where the stuff gets filed.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. I'll put it on the docket or
Could
something.
somebody tell me how much does it cost us in paperwork, each time we change an ordinance?
Indeed.
That's a figure that maybe we should have at hand, because, like, say if we're gonna make a change, we say, well, let's put this in now and then make the other change 2 or 3 months from now, and we find out that it really costs us about $500 in publishing and something like, there's a lot of fees.
In this particular interest, the cost of not doing this would be more than putting it in and revising it later.
Yeah, my only question is, how much does it cost us in advertising on a change of an ordinance and reproduction to replace all the ordinances that we have, the pages, the printing, and all the labor costs? I think that's not...
$900. We got a $10 award where my office cost $900.
Now, what's it cost an inch for legal?
Per inch,
No.
$3.25.
No, that's one cost, which is probably the major one, is the advertising cost. But then there's the printing cost, and then the filing cost, and all of our books that we have in our libraries in the city and stuff like that. And we lose sight of these sometimes. I
The
think
digital
if we could,
machines and the secretaries, the attorney's office, and the
you could just
finance
have your
office.
analyst just track it down for information. I think it's something maybe we should have at hand to see that every time we change one of these things, we're talking about $2,000, $3,000.
Well, I think actually this was brought out in the redoing of the code, which they're in the process of doing now. But you know, we talk about the great cost, and maybe it's going to cost $100,000 to change the code and bring it up to date. But on the other hand, it might cost us $500,000 doing it the slow way, ordinance in, ordinance out, change it. Well, it's a good one, but we'll change it a little later on, sort of thing. This can get awfully expensive.
But how long has Brian Newman Crawford left the city? How long ago was that?
He didn't leave the city, did he? You're talking about the other one, Gaylord Henry.
No, I'm talking about Newman Crawford came back here with the big plan and the big procedure when he was going to come back on schedule.
Still working for us.
He is?
He's just not working on the code.
Oh, he's still here. Oh,
Sure.
I thought he had been permanently assigned to this revision of the code and had a schedule he was going to come back. And when I didn't see him for 6 months, I thought he'd gone.
No, he's handling some other matters.
To give you an idea of what the cost of having a private firm revise the code, and there are professional companies that just do this. I got a rough estimate from one of them last year. It was something in excess of $100,000. So,
And we took Brian off it. Look at all the money we're losing.
no, he's not off of it.
Just not full time. Well, I think when you say it costs $100,000, I don't think that means a thing. In short, if something costs $100,000, it gives $200,000 benefit. You're losing $100,000 by not moving it ahead. Now, this is the thing that's a real concern to me. And if our people don't have the time to do it or whatever it may be, why maybe we should look at a contract. But we should evaluate it now. If, on the other hand, if we can do it for $50,000 instead of $100,000, get it done, great. But it's just like we're talking about. Bill says it costs more to to delay this thing instead of implementing it just because of the time involved in the thing. Well, this is true of the whole code. So if it takes $100,000 to save the city an extra 50 or 200 or $300,000, let's do it. And but we should know what we're doing when we get into it.
Well, let me say this, our costs in developing something like this are very considerable, obviously, from a rather simple change that there's very little manpower or time spent on, where the only cost is the publication cost, against that, where there's numerous changes made and discussions held with council on that are going to run up into quite a little bit, because we spend a lot of man hours of time on it. So I don't think we can give you a per page cost on ordinance changes. We can give you the minimum, and then it's up from there.
Well, I think an analogy that would be similar to this is we're switching our accounting from the old procedure to electronic data processing, and this is a costly thing, but it will show a tremendous profit in the long run. And I think the code is the same thing. If there's an old procedure and it develops all these built-in vices, there comes a time when you convert, and I think that's basically what we're doing on the code. We should know what the values and the savings are.
And I think you have to recognize this, that this is a continuing function. You're never going to have this thing so that all the things are met. We'll find as years go on that here's another thing that ought to be changed. It could be made more efficient, more effective, and do it better this way.
Also true in accounting, right?
One swinging through it isn't going to do
I didn't
It's like the 1911 Act, Terry.
Well, yes, but the point I'm getting at is there's no sense diluting it, saying, well, it's going to have to be changed anyway, so let's not change it. The accounting procedures are going to change continuously, too.
We think this is a step in the right direction of efficient operation.
Well, anything else on,
Take a bigger one,
anything else on this performance bond and law business thing? No, nothing else. I guess we agree to put this on the docket. Yeah, put on the docket. Well, let's go on to do.
Why would we put it on the docket?
All right, move the second, I will put it on the docket.
Was there a change?
No, there's no change necessary. It's just administrative.
Discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Goes on the docket. Okay, on your morning on your docket here, page 1.
Those are all hearings.
I have a note that item 112 is to be taken out of order at the beginning meeting, at the end of the special order of business.
Well, we're on that. What kind of support are we giving them?
I don't know.
Non-financial.
What kind of support are we giving? Moral support?
Who requested the
Candidates, sir.
I don't know. I just have a note here that's going to send the...
request 112 to be out of order?
No.
Council.
They want to give us tickets to it.
Right, I didn't request to be out of order, but this guy called me a while back, and this is the first annual Underwater Sea Film Festival, and they got all sorts of a big fanfare coming. He said, what do you do to get a resolution? So I referred him to the mayor's office, and if not there, to Tom.
Who sponsors it?
It's a non-profit group of scuba divers or something like that.
Chet Nicklin. But I was wondering who is requesting that this item be taken out of order and be first.
They're probably going to be here, I guess.
Probably the mayor's office.
What is indicated, Alan, is that representatives of the group will be present to present tickets to the council, and they asked if they could follow after the normal special order of business.
Moving into special order of business?
Yeah, I see no problem with that. Normal way of handling these deals.
They probably want to make a little show on it.
Tickets on defective aqua line, join us.
They should.
On item 6, I remember the last time we went through this gamut. Is there anything different or unusual at this time, or is it handled exactly the same as it was before with the same conditions? Just want to be ready for it.
Yeah, the same specifications are set up. Previous contractor, as council recalls, did not perform satisfactorily. The city attorney's office, I guess, is handling some action in connection with that now.
Is that,
This is a higher priced bid. It's the lowest of three bids, however, for the,
How much is it higher than the prior bid?
the other bid was $15,900.
didn't Chattel bring up a good point last time on the fact that these people come in, they bid, they're bonded, and that if we have to go to someone else because of non-performance, that at least the difference between the higher bid and their bid has to come from somewhere?
That's what the attorney's working on. He's gonna pick us up the difference between 18,227.50 and 15,900 and cost.
Depends what
Try.
they have and what we can go against, I guess.
Yeah. They're judgment proof.
Do we require a bond from people like that, performance bond? Any work done for the city requires a performance
Do
bond.
these people have a bond?
I believe we do.
I think anybody that does work for the city has to have a performance
Well, let's
bond.
find out.
So the last boys apparently didn't. Is this
Well,
bond?
they have to have a
Is this
bid
to be
bond,
bond?
which provides that they will enter into the contract. And in this case, it included getting a performance bond, which they didn't do, and that was, so they actually didn't qualify to go into the contract.
Well, they had a bid bond.
We would be moving under their bid bond.
What does the bid bond guarantee? That they're gonna qualify to take the contract, which one of the conditions is they must have a
If they
performance
win
bond?
it, they will enter into a contract with the
Won't
city,
back off.
and
then before,
they never did.
Yes, but how long?
Let's do a little one at a time here.
Yeah, well, I wanna finish my question if I can. You've got a procedure that either there's a loophole in it or there isn't. And if you have a bid bond, the bid bond in effect says that we are going to comply with the contract, and if we don't, the bid bond will pay off. Now, when they sign the contract, they must have a performance bond before the bid bond is released, I would think. With this case, you don't have a gap. In short, either the bid bond is liable for the loss if they don't ultimately sign the contract, or if they sign the contract and the performance bond takes over. Isn't that the way it works?
That's right, and I think in this instance we had some difficulty in that they did not come up with a performance.
All right, but then the bid bond is liable, aren't they?
Right.
So then we're covered for the difference in loss. We don't have to worry about the guy being judgment proof, for assuming our paperwork was correct and our performance and our setup.
We'll
And
have a case with them.
Well,
all right.
this isn't, so we don't have a misunderstanding, this isn't completely true, because a bid bond is set up mainly to assure that the man will sign the contract. Now, these people haven't, and the bond can be called on. But the bid bond isn't in an amount on these types of things. It ensures against total performance for the period of contract, because that follows in the performance bond. And there will be a way, I guess, of getting at the bid bond, but that won't cover the total difference here by a long sight.
What I'm saying is on number 6, is it if the same thing should happen to these people, is it now set up, or is it understood that the city isn't going to be liable for the thing? And we also had some losses on the other contract. I mean, the interim work. But is this one set up now, so we won't have a problem?
We'll have a
Okay.
performance bond provision in here.
Just to clarify something in my mind, a bid bond isn't in effect through the length of the contract, is it?
No.
No, but the bid bond should be until the contract is
Signed.
so the man does what he says he's going to do in the bid, and what he says he's going to do is he says he's going to sign the contract, and he is going to have a performance bond, etc. Now, the bid bond should be enforced until these things are brought about.
Correct.
And then as soon as they're brought about, it would seem that the bid bond can be released.
Then a performance bond takes
Right.
over.
Like,
Well, the attorney's executing this, aren't you? Okay, well.
On number 7, is this something new, or is this something we've been doing for a long while?
No, we've always manufactured some of ours.
Is this boulevard stop signs?
No, we purchased most stuff.
It's just certain signs, aren't they?
How about aluminum
Certain
campaign
signs.
signs they've been using for years?
Yeah. For those
Yeah,
who want to
yeah.
campaign for 2 years at a stretch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for special order signs, I know that we have difficulty getting small numbers, because we manufacture a good deal cheaper doing it ourselves. Get them
What
out
would be
in
an
time.
example of that?
Trying to hunt here for
Mission Bay sign?
and indicate them deal here.
Well, this is just sheet aluminum that we cut up and our own sign painters paint them.
Incidentally, I noticed
Two.
in the beach areas we're trying out fiberglass, and that's I wonder how that it looks real good. If those metal signs corrode like that.
We've been experimenting with all types of signs to see what in the long haul will work out. Oddly enough, sometimes the sign holds up some of the little fasteners, the fittings go to pieces on us. We've found out a lot of different things now that I think we're getting to a point where we're going to be able to put together a total package that will stand up in the long haul much better.
Promises between just some of the metals of the post and the sign.
There are certain signs we make, certain signs we make which are much cheaper. They're custom made. We have our own plant.
I'll get some of the types, but it's the unusual sign and the one that you can't buy readily manufactured. It would cost us considerable if we had it manufactured.
Anything
We
else?
are using here, as council will note, the second low bidder. It's $83 differential between the low and the second bidder. We are doing that because the second bidder can supply the sheets in a reasonable time. The low bidder cannot supply them for 60 days or more.
Where's the low bidder from?
New Common?
No, no comment is the accepted bidder. San Diego.
San Diego.
So it's the supply must be out of town. Okay. Item number 10.
Anything else on 2? 10.
Question not on the bid, but the question on the type of equipment going in there. Do I recall that one of the initial agreements when we put in the concourse that there would not be food preparing facilities and so on, that there would be food heating facilities and ovens and different things like that to keep food warm, and now we're changing and we're going to converting to an actual food preparing kitchen.
Council recalls a report was submitted by the manager back in July, I guess it was, which we indicated after our operation of the facility up to this time, and after consultation with both caterers and concessioners and review by the health department, that we wanted permission to proceed to advertise for bids to complete the catering kitchen. This includes actually the equipment necessary for the holding type operation and not for the complete food preparation.
But this is
And
one
that's
of the real
what
big bonus
This is what we're proceeding on to.
first went in is the fact that we wanted to go to a food holding type of a facility, not a food preparation facility.
Yeah, because we were going to stay out of the food handling business because there wasn't enough profit in it, but we were going to keep the liquor concession because it was
Well,
pretty good.
there's both the health department's thinking and ours that this would permit a good deal more efficient handling of the food, to be served better.
So I think the fear on a lot of people was that we would then also get out of the concession and liquor business and get into the restaurant business next.
Well, see, originally the thought was we wouldn't even put in this holding equipment. We'd see what happened and what actual operating problems came up, and this would give some basis of judgment as to the need, design, what type of equipment, and this is what was done.
Doesn't it
This is the
also
result.
provide for washing dishes after we haven't had dishwashers?
Well, they haven't used hardly any of that.
These are warmers, refrigeration, washing machines, this type of thing.
So we got a lot of that stuff we didn't even use.
The sole bid is 32% above the estimate. What is the bid?
Well, we don't have yet dishwashing equipment
operable.
I don't think so, but we sure got a lot of money
How
wrapped
can
up
they,
in it.
well, how can they use it if you say it hasn't been used, if it's not?
Well, it would seem odd that you go out and buy an automobile if there's no gasoline available. I mean, the question is, why did we buy it the first time? It was going to be hooked up. It was the health department, wasn't it, to stop the operation?
I don't think they stopped it. They feel that the washing equipment, the heating equipment will allow better food service there.
Don't we have some of that equipment down there?
No.
In other words,
that great big long machine down at the end of the kitchen.
In
Looks
other
like a
words-
dishwasher to me.
in other words, they are requesting more than what we had anticipated in putting in originally, is that right?
No, we anticipated this originally, as indicated in our report. We suggested to council that council hold off in the general contract for the building of putting in this equipment, and indicated that we'd follow up later with this equipment as a separate contract, feeling first that we could probably put it in cheaper than giving it to the general to start with, and secondly that we'd gain the advantage of having some experience of a caterer operating in there and trying to determine exactly what was needed. Now, whether caterer's got some existing equipment in there or not, I don't know, and he might very well might have of his own.
If we are going to serve first-class meals at a reasonable cost in this facility and compete with facilities in other parts of the country, we have to make available equipment to our caterers so they can do this.
Well, this was not the concern, or my concern on the thing, and it's very simple. I asked the question, we've got some equipment in there, and this is all, I think
What
we all...
have we got in there, Harry? You make this statement. What have we got?
Well, you tell me what we don't have.
What we're buying. Now, you say we've got equipment. What is it we've got?
Well, why don't we find out what we've
Yeah,
got?
let me have Mr. Gerhardt come up here, and he'll go over. I'll ask him to bring a listing of who has what down there.
Well,
I don't really care what they've got down there. We need it, so that's fine. The questions that I have on this thing is, number one, we're 32% above estimate, and there's one bidder. What I'm curious about, what happened? Did somebody come in and design it for specific equipment where there couldn't be competition, or why did we miss by the bid so far? What are the reasons?
Okay, let me explain this, because I think it's pretty clear. We did goof up on the way we set the bid out. We put it in a package, and this made it necessary for one type of contractor to bid different types of equipment. We feel we can materially reduce this cost by rejecting these bids, redesigning our call for bids so that it can be, the equipment can be called for by type, so that we're not trying to combine a lot of different suppliers in one deal. And they've indicated evidently to our purchasing department that this is what boosted our cost, that we try to package this stuff, and we've got people doing types of work, for example, sheet metal work, where they're not in that type of business, and they've got to just contract that stuff out to somebody else again.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I brought this up is not necessarily that we don't need this type of equipment. The thing that we have to keep in the back of the mind is when we went in with this building, we went in with certain basic philosophies in this building, and was accepted by the community with these philosophies. Now, of course, we're going to have change and modify it due to the problems we run into. But the thing like our method of financing in regards to where the funds go from supposed to the capital to general fund, we're changing that. The parking, our concepts on the parking garage and rates and use and so on like that, we somewhat modified or are considering modifying what we initially went into. Well, this again is another concern, that when we went in first of all, we said that no, the city was not going to get into the restaurant business. And this is not, and this is why I asked the question.
No,
because I didn't want to see us getting set up so that all of a sudden the city is now cooking meals, or the Facilities Corporation is cooking meals for people, because all of the caterers and the restaurants in the town didn't object to the facilities going in, because at that time there wasn't the competition, you might say, of the restaurant business competing with their facilities. And I think we have to be real careful here. And
as you pointed out, and as I would discuss, the fact this is an enlargement of the food holding operation, which is not contrary to what we went and handling, what we went up to. I gather, Ira, too, and you were mentioning the washing machines or the dishwashing. I've heard that this is has been a health problem, and that I guess you were the one telling me they have to pick up all the dishes and the tablecloths and put them dirty into the trucks and bring them out of there, and that this doesn't make sense. So I think going along this line and allowing them to wash their facilities and so on.
Isn't our basic problem or our premise on the whole picture down there is, number one, food has to be served, and it has to be served at a quality and a price that will keep our convention facility in competition or ahead of competition for the city. Isn't that our number one premise? We have to do that. Now, the next premise was certainly, I would think, and it was my understanding, that it definitely should be by caterers and put out to business. But my first premise would still be, if they cannot perform and will not perform, and we lose our competitive position with the other cities, then I think we have a responsibility to get into it. In short, we're saying, free enterprise, go ahead and do it, and we want you to do it, and we don't want it. But let's give them everything we can. Now, that was my basic concern from the beginning, and I think that's what we're working on. But if we can't, we've got to put this stuff in, and this isn't it right now. It's still the caterers have requested this.
Well, this helps the caterer's operation. I'm sure the system is doing a good job.
Well, do we have equipment down there now? It's not installed. I know we have refrigeration and all that stuff.
Ice cube machines, sinks, ranges.
I mean, what do we have down there now?
Well, I'd have to put together a list of it, Tom. I don't know if
I mean, would it do any good if we just walk downstairs and look at it?
Well,
yeah, let's walk down there after conference and we can discuss this further. So we get a picture in our mind what it looks like.
Gosh, I thought all you guys were down there working with me. I mean, at night you can make a couple extra bucks working the kitchen.
Yeah. Well, you guys want to do that? You just take a walk down there and take a look at it.
All we're suggesting in this Trumbull docket today is rejection of bids.
Yes, and that to me is proper.
Yeah.
So
That is proper, so I can see
I
no
don't think we
reason.
need to look at it to reject the bid.
No, but I think it'd be nice to look at it, but at the same time,
put one out without.
what the city manager is suggesting that we take action on seems proper to me without delay.
Well, now,
Okay.
wait a minute. You said all this did was reject the bids. My docket says, in authorizing the purchase
well,
of
to advertise on this broken down type of thing. What we ran into, we got too many crafts involved in a single
You
bid.
said that, but you just now said something else. It does more than reject the bid.
That's right.
Advertising.
I think walking down there might do a little good.
On number 9, is this or what's the purpose of the docking facility? Is this so people can get in their boats,
Yeah.
their water skis?
After they go off the launch ramp, they can come around, pick up their family, put in their gear and equipment.
The launch ramp is there.
Like this.
Anything else on 3?
Number 11. This is, we've estimated, what,
Okay.
$25,000 a year on a remedial?
50. It's 50.
Yeah.
Anything else on 3? Page 4, 101.
Where does this revenue go that comes in on this? Does this go into the general fund or the capital?
Oh, this is the utility company land, goes into their fund.
Water.
Mr. Hom,
Mr. Hitch.
on that same item, apparently, since this lease, Mr. Hahn, on 101 is for 12 years, apparently the utilities department doesn't figure they will have any use for this particular land for 12 years for any other purpose.
No, this is the land in San Pasquale Valley that is set out in our program for permanent agricultural use. And this is deemed within the concept of the master plan, and is a development of that land to put it in good shape for carrying on for permanently as an agricultural production area.
On 102, it says on my annotation that the conditions are all the same except the rent.
Give Alan a chance to talk.
Now, I don't know on 102 whether the rent is going up or the rent is going down. It says the conditions are the same on 102, except the rent is different.
Well, if council recalls, there were certain adjustments in the rent to cover participation in connection with the tract.
So is the rent up or is the rent down?
The rent is up now and is going down over the years. So this is a total amount for a 3-year period.
What has the rent been before?
It wasn't really rent to begin with. It was, we were going to put the track in. The school couldn't pay for part of the track. And so what they said, well, we can't pay for the track, but we can give you equivalent amount in rent, so they've given us rent in lieu, and when that participation is through, the general assumption is that it will be deleted. It's merely to pay for the track, their share.
Their normal rent is $3,600 a year.
So now it's going to be $15,000.
No, it's 3 years.
Oh, I see.
This picks up a portion that hasn't been picked up to this date.
Okay.
Their participation.
Is this for all their school games or what?
This is an annual agreement for their games that it is only the basic rent. They also pay a charge per hour for lights and for operator there and so forth on an hourly basis that is in addition to the basic rent itself.
Who cleans it up?
They do.
They always clean it up after their game.
There you go.
Thank you.
Anything else on 4? Okay, 5. What about this 108 here? Can you refresh me on this again? This is what we have budgeted.
Now, that's 60% of the pension occupancy tax, and council set this out as an amount for this program.
Do we have a contract and the agreement?
This will be the agreement.
Yeah, I mean, can I have a copy of it?
Do we have any control whatsoever as to what percentage of this goes to advertising and what percentage goes to administration or anything of that nature in the contract? Huh? What? Well, it shouldn't be, but I think we do have responsibility to have a report and know, that way,
I think we start spelling out any portions of it to be used specifically when we're in the management.
No, I'm not talking about specifically. I'm talking about ratio of administration to effective promotion.
Well, techniques in advertising changes as time goes.
Yeah, but it's pretty hard if you got 90% administration and 10% to go out to the media that it's going to be effective.
Well, this is not their only source of funds.
They don't get the money.
They're not going to dive until they spend the money.
Ivor?
Well, this is not the Convention Church Bureau's major or only source of funds. It is their major source of funds. So, if the Euro members contribute, something like what is it, 180,000 or what is it?
Was 180,000.
This
59,213, I think. This was based on last year's contribution. County, another 85,000.
Ivor, you finished?
Yeah.
All right, Alan?
Then this $420,000 comes out of the hotel motel tax and not out of the property tax rate.
That's correct.
This is the first time, isn't it? Instead of, well, you know, in the past, remember
I'm not sure what we did as a result of that suit there.
Oh,
I want to give you an answer and then that would appear to be wrong.
Well, anyway,
Last year is still in court, Alan. This is,
I see, okay,
this is
well,
the first full-fledged year
the
where we know where we're going.
expectation.
Yeah, this is the first full year, is correct.
Where we know where we're going.
I think that this, well, everybody here, I'm sure, agrees that the San Diego Convention Visitors Bureau is certainly doing a wonderful job. And this $420,000 out of the hotel motel tax is equivalent to, if it were on the property tax, it'd be 5 cents. And I'm hoping that out of the hearings that were conducted by the industrial board, that there will be some result from that we can do an equivalent in attracting new industry to what the marvelous job that the Convention and Visitor Bureau is doing. If we had a San Diego Industrial Bureau that was operated like this wonderful board of directors operate this outside of the city government, and the same amount of effort was put into it for industry as we do at tourism, in my estimation, it would really move this town fast.
This is a real good idea, but there are two shortcomings. One is what source of city income would we use, or what new tax would we impose? And then two, presently established businesses are not going to donate to a membership to bring in what might be competitors, whereas the tourist and convention industry is bringing the business in. But bringing a new business in, you could bring in a competitor, and this is it makes it a little bit harder to accomplish.
The only question I have is regards to policy here, because we keep this around Atlanta. Is just we've gone in the past giving them a matching dollar-for-dollar basis for money that they raised from private sources. And then we came up with Section C here, the $175,000 for the winter program. And I think we're allocating the funds. I think we should also might maybe consider whether or not we should approve the program, because we're getting the manager back into the business here under item F.
I think if we do that, Jack, we should set up the city's Convention Tourist Bureau, and the purpose of the Convention Tourist Bureau, you have a membership which is contributing $213,000 of their own money. And the biggest objection to the transient occupancy tax is the city is trying to get into a business which we know nothing about. So we have a private organization to whom we contract with, and we say these are the most knowledgeable people in this field. Now, if we say they're the most knowledgeable people in this field, and then say we're going to approve it, I think we have a contract, and we got to keep them at arm's length, because we not only will take credit for what they do right, we'll have to take credit for what they do wrong too.
Thank you, everyone. You're speaking in support of me on Proposition F. F here, saying that everything should be approved by the city manager on the winter program.
That's what it says.
That's what it says.
That's what the contract
That's what the contract says, so it's doing exactly what you're opposed to, and that's why I raised the question.
Then we are in agreement.
Because the $175,000 on the winter program, it's the old lever again.
Why is it there?
Well, it's I think it's just a protective measure.
Well, it's just a protective measure.
It's not administrative.
Then you adopt.
It's getting into policy. We should approve the amount of funds, the distribution of funds, and the budget. We argued this a long time ago, and there were clauses when we sat down on this first thing, taking the manager out of it, pretty much.
Well,
so it's back in again.
Well, it's no different like our leases we draw up. We have a 30-day cancellation. We have a right to reject these things, but we're not in.
Well, we're just turning this over carte blanche and giving what Ivor said, and this is a philosophy that we're going to have to come up with. We're either going to control it or we're not going to control it. Now, if it's going to be controlled, Jack says it's policy and the council should control it. Ivor disagrees that it should be controlled by the council or manager. Jack feels apparently the same way, and the thing is, it is in there, so let's ask the manager the question, Why is it in there? Why do you want it in there? What's the protection and why do you want this control?
Now, let me say this, I don't know why it's in here. I wasn't involved in the original drafting of this, but I assume this is a new program, and all it's provided for here is that a budget be submitted for this new winter program, and that the budget be approved. I don't think this is necessarily dictating the...
No, and there are other protections in there. We don't pay them anything until they give us the receipts, the vouchers, whatever they do.
That's all right, but that's not the approval of the program.
Approval. Well, I don't think this means the program and budget is a broad brush type thing. Isn't detail of it. Detail of you'd have to follow. Now, I don't know what the basis of this being in the original deal was, except that it is new.
The only thing is we've had submissions and presentations by the Chamber of Commerce and by these other groups with their budgets and their expenditure funds, and it's always come to the council in the form of a report, quarterly report or otherwise. And I don't think that the city manager approved the Senior Chamber of Commerce, the Junior Chamber of Commerce, and any of these other organizations, their budgets. We normally do. And we have our auditor that checks and verifies the expenditures. Now, in this case, the city manager then is the one on this special program of the $175,000. We give them the money with the approval of the program and the budget subject to the approval of the city manager. Well, it's kind of a hefty wheel wedge.
You accept responsibility. Suppose the manager approved the floats that the junior chamber entered in the Rose Bowl parade and it didn't win. When you make approval of these things, you also accept the blame for the failure.
Same way with endorsement.
So this is the only part that concerns me. I think we have a tremendous organization in the Convention and Tourist Bureau, and I hate to take responsibility for their mistakes, and they're going to make some.
Well, let me ask you a question. Number one, let's face it, we are taking responsibility, and tremendous responsibility, because our action on this is to take and say up to $420,000 going to the Convention and Tourist Bureau. So whether they do a good job or a bad job, or are accused of it or not, this is our decision, and we're going to have to stand by it. Now, the next thing is, in this responsibility, do we want to turn it completely over to them, just like you would when you contract out with anyone? Just turn it over and let them perform and let them do the job and be completely free, because if we get involved in the thing or we interfere in any way, then there's this problem with you can always come back and say, well, you didn't turn us loose, and what you caused us to do is made this thing fail. So I agree that we either cut the strings all the way or we ought to be in there in the control, and not halfway in between, have no line of responsibility.
Well, it's not too clear just what this paragraph is.
Well, can I make an observation on this, Mr. Mayor? I wrote this, and when I got the 1472 requesting it, this provision was requested for this particular allocation, this 175. My thinking and my interpretation as I wrote this was, this is a new program. The manager is not going to be sitting there second guessing the Convention and Tourist Bureau. All they have to do is submit a program and a budget so that we know where the money is, what's happening.
Well, who requested it and why was the question I asked of the manager. He don't know why it's in there. Now, somebody requested it. Who requested it, and why did they request it? There must be a reason. It's probably a good reason. I think if we had the reason, well, we could knock it off. We're just reaching for reasons now.
Well, this is my understanding of it when I received it.
Can I give you a little bit of history? And the reason why I noticed this is because when we first talked about the hotel transit occupancy tax, we had a proposal, and we made a lot of changes in that thing. We then went through revisions, and we rewrote the thing. And one of the things that we discussed and ended up with is that we didn't want to get into the management of it. If they're not doing a good job, we can them. They're just like any other group that comes before us and asks for the administration of the authorization for funds. So we eliminated a number of clauses, and one of the clauses was the manager getting into the Convention and Tourist Bureau. We said the auditor should get into it, and we should get reports, and the manager can analyze the reports for us as far as the expenditures and the balance of expenditures. But we didn't want management or the council getting into into running the bureau. And $180,000 of their budget, when we have the say-so on the policy and the program and the budget in that respect, I think very well could lead to our getting into there, and that's why we struck it out.
Well, if the attorney drew up the ordinance here in regards to what you said, setting a budget and how much to be spent were and so forth, I think that ought to be stricken out. But I was under the impression that was to the degree that is an area where we can cut, if we had to, cut the program as to protect the city. But if it's going to get that involved, with your intent as to submitting a budget and outline of their whole program for our approval, I think that's way out of line.
You take an advertising program and set it up and contract out for it and commit yourself, which the Convention Tourist Bureau is probably going to have to do something similar to this. And if they have to sit there with a cloud hanging over their head saying, well, we're going to sign this contract, but we have to protect ourselves because the city might pull the rug or something, they can't be in that position and do an effective job. And that's why, but getting back to the thing, the attorney put it in for a reason. He was requested, and as he understood it, this is what he thought was requested. Now it gets back to one thing. Whoever requested this, is it clear? Is the reasoning as he understood it, is it clear? And that's the reason. And if so, let's find out what the reason is. And weigh it, and if there's a real good reason for it being in there, we should know about it. And if there's no reason for it being in there, we should take it out. But not just take it out just because we get a big surge here. We could start taking these contracts all to pieces here. And
Well, let's find out where it came from.
Well, it came from the manager's office.
Well, what's your reason?
I was not party to this request being made, but as I understand the thing, this is a new program. The desire here was that some broad picture be given, while approved by manager, certainly would be taken to council too as to what was proposed to be done in this new program.
But,
so that ideas could be inserted into it if anyone felt there should be some...
Do we want that interference? That's the question.
This is a matter of policy.
Okay, exactly. That's
now you got it.
that's my whole point why I brought it up, is that they came before us and presented a proposal for a winter program and with statistics and outlines and what they wanted to do, just like any other group requesting funds from the city. And we decided by policy to go ahead and allow them to do it. Now, I think we're starting to get into the management of it when we start to tie it to definite thing. I think that doesn't mean that we should divorce ourselves from it, because that's almost $500,000 of taxpayers' money that we're given, and we should watch it pretty closely, and we should then make sure that the money is being spent. If overall we feel that it's wrong or it's ineffective, we cut it.
I think that we approved it really when they made the presentation to us, and we said, all right, we'll give you the money. And then I'd say, run with it. And when they get through and they should have flopped, we can say you did wrong. But
you evaluate the program after, not before.
And even though it's new, I'd like to see that paragraph out, Jeff. I agree with you.
You mean knock out the city manager's control?
I would say I would be very much in favor of taking it out, but I do want to know the real reason why it was put in there, not what you guess is the reason.
If there's a good reason, I haven't been convinced, and maybe somebody can convince me. But there's an inherent tie-in that when you do this, then you accept responsibility for failure.
We're going to accept it anyway, but this will put it'll put the monkey all right on their back, and they're free and clear to do the best job possible. And at the end of the year, we're going to be reevaluating this, and you know darn well what's going to happen.
Okay, well, let me ask the attorney. Actually, as I took this paragraph, it was just a protective measure, not as a control measure. However, I suppose it can become a control measure, as you indicated. As to me, it was control. Now, if for any reason or another it became so extreme, the program, the wrong people got control of the beer and so forth, can it be cut off?
Well,
only gonna happen, but
the thing isn't really
just ask
so much a matter of control, but just to find out what they're gonna do. Since this is something new and it hasn't been done before. That's the only reason for
Are
it.
you gonna go?
I'm going
Yes.
to radio.
Okay.
Give me a
On
picture,
item
order, just
3,
find out. He can do it.
before we make a quick decision.
Is there a hurry for this
Say,
one?
would you consider letting us look at the property before denying or approving? I went down there this morning, looks like urban renewal, San Diego style,
Okay,
but I don't trust my judge.
well, we can go on with the rest of the docket if,
I have to go to the radio.
okay. The mayor suggested that perhaps, continuance 1 week, Waller can come back with a clear understanding of this. There are no objections to,
Tuesday for the 1 week.
Why Tuesday?
Well, this won't be the dang any longer necessary.
Well, it won't even be in the docket.
docket
No
doc.
supplemental docket.
Well, whenever you think it's ready, Waller.
Make it 1 week and then we'll put it on the docket.
1 week.
Continue 1 week?
Anything else on 5?
There's an error in 109, I don't know whether we noted it here in the annotation, serves 6 lots in the city of Del Mar, not San Diego.
Probably is.
They will pay the out-of-city rate.
Anything else on 5? Page 6.
On 117, would somebody explain that to me? What's it all about?
Which one?
117.
117.
This used to be a comfort station, as I understand at this site.
Huh?
This used to be a comfort station at this site, since been cleared.
This is on Strandway, Mission Beach. It's 820 square foot, which was a former comfort station site, which has been removed. This woman owns this property. It's not a buildable site. She's the only one that actually could use it. The property is
And $3,700?
for 800 square feet.
Okay, is that a cost per square foot that's equivalent to the other values?
Property felt this was an excellent price for it, as a matter of fact.
Good
I
price.
asked the same
Good
question.
price for 800 square feet.
Well, that depends. If you're talking about downtown Dallas, why...
Yeah, but what the heck could we do with 800 square feet?
Buy up the other at
Well,
the same price and sell it...
My only question is, if it were up for bid, would we get more? Is not.
Well, nobody can use it. Nobody can bid against it.
It isn't,
Not a buildable site.
Zoning on either that piece or this one, neither of them is buildable.
We'll sell it to them, then we'll make them dedicate most of it for a street, okay? Huh?
Anything on 7?
Now, let me bring up this one point, because I asked this yesterday, we don't have an answer to it, what the zoning is. The zoning is or is not the same.
I asked that, and I
And we don't have an
don't
answer to
recall
it.
anymore.
On what?
On this,
117?
yeah.
Well, can you have the answer for us in the chamber? All right. Page 7.
Because I think they're zoned differently.
Nothing on 7? Oh, what's 121?
It's raising the card room fees from 60 cents to 80 cents.
Oh, okay.
Is that allowable, and they charge less, or do they?
Report was given to council on that with a request by the people operating.
It's up to 80 cents now, Jack.
Do they have to charge 80?
That's up, okay.
Well, you'll be paying 80 cents, Jack.
Oh, I see, we've got a 120.
Page 8.
Got an application in for one on C Street.
123 should be up to
$2,400.
123 should be what?
Should be up to
Aren't these hearings?
Our procedure is they have to ask for appeal, and we decide whether we're going to hear it or not.
This is the set for hearing, and if we decide to.
We have to vote, my majority vote to put it in here and put it in.
Nothing else?
But if you people keep letting these all turn into hearings...
How do you want to take that walk you were talking about?
Mayor?
I got one here that's high, it's 93 Fridays, instead of
19th, this is kind of ready. We have another luncheon and tour set up for Roar Aircraft. For any of the council which to attend, we will be here on 10 o'clock Friday. We'll have lunch at Roar Aircraft and a tour of the plant back here sometime in the afternoon. Well,
You're all committed.
you want to mark it in your notebook if you want to.
You're committed at noon already. Yeah, I'm committed at noon. So are you.
I just wanted to ask this, Tom, is this conference this afternoon necessary?
What is it?
On the freeway flyer.
On the freeway bus business?
Well, we have for conference 2 o'clock this mass transit conference that was set up a couple weeks ago.
You know what, I'm finding it difficult to run against 5 guys when you're having the conferences early and late. And I'm wondering if that conference could be put off a week.
Oh, come on, Alan.
Well,
I'm finding it difficult to run without an issue.
Well, I have...
Well, the only time I have left is from midnight to dawn.
Oh, you're going to be a shoe-in, Alan, but worry.
Well, these conferences are set, and if time permits, councilman is requested to be here, but they can't, good reason, and they can't show up.
I'm in favor of transit. Let's get
If
going.
the council wants to change it to another date, just...
Well, I imagine that we ought to help Shiloh out and have it.
I thought we wanted to help the senior citizens and the transit problem.
Foreman be able to speak this afternoon at the conference.
Is this what you've stolen from him, according to what he said?
According to what he says.
Well, can I don't know whether Alan or anybody else, still go down the bottom there?
Yep.
Okay.
I'd like
Told
to
them you'd be down.
Oh, let's go.
Before you go, on the 1965 Economic Development Act, Congress has just passed, there are a great number of provisions very similar to the Accelerated Public Works Act that we participated in a few years ago. There are some briefing sessions to be held shortly in Washington. Bud Porter is going back on our contract. I would like to suggest that we ask the manager to send at least one of the staff, and possibly several of the staff, to this conference and see if we can get the full information on the implementation of some of these accelerated public works programs. So the conference, I don't know whether you need a resolution for it or not, if we do, but it's not in the normal course of activities of your office as well. But one of the things we set up, if not, I think we should send somebody back to the manager's office to sit in on this conference and come back with all of the details so we can be briefed on it and understand what it's all about.
Well, one other thing I think is an adjunct to that, I would recommend that possibly Tom Hom go back also, not only to sit in on that, because we're considering right now 1, possibly 2, or an increase of our Washington representation, and I think it might just be good when we have this plan before us, maybe someone from the policy-making body to go back and get a feel.
I think our representative, our Washington representative can sit in something like that. Yes, Alan?
I'm in favor of what the mayor says because we have many necessary improvements that are necessary in our city, and it worked out very good before. And we have an opportunity here to advance some labor, some of the facilities that are needed in our city, and by actual personal contact, we can find out what is within the realm of possibility and not. And I think that the small amount of expense involved that you're suggesting, that it would be very good business for us to take your suggestion.
I have a question on Accelerated Public Works. To qualify for that, we must have the workable program. Is that correct?
No, yeah.
On the funds.
Well, wait a minute.
This is one of the ambiguities of this new act. I think that's a requirement, but we don't.
It was last the Accelerated Works project, we were told, and that's why I asked the question again.
NORAC is a complex darn thing. I finished reading it over the weekend. Many pages long. There are two basic acts involved. It sets out a considerable sum of money that will be utilized as grants and aid to local government in the development of needed public facilities. Now, I think this is excellent, the idea of sending somebody back there, because we've got to go over the detail of that act and find out just what, that there are some ambiguous provisions as you read the
Do you remember the problems that we got into with the accelerated public works project? Now, we were told, and again, it may have been very vague, but it was a distinct possibility, and told that we had to have the workable program to qualify, plus having a certain unemployment factor.
Another thing, we had to have uncommitted capital money.
That's right, which we cut our own throat by having a long-range capital outlay program.
Which I understand is not in the new act.
Well, the only thing that I'm concerned with, and the point that I was getting at, is we're sitting here, the next question I would have is a prime requirement of a workable program, is it a general plan?
Well,
and the question that hits me here, and what I'm leading up to, is a very simple thing. If it's required to get accelerated public works program, that you do have a workable program, and to have a workable program, you have to have a general plan. Maybe next Tuesday you just aren't going to have to worry about any of this stuff.
Yes,
if one goes down.
Mr. Hahn can tell you whether a general plan is required.
He can?
Well, he's
it's a possibility.
Councilman Hitch, I cannot. I've read both of those acts. Offhand, I would say yes. But there are ambiguities. There's an overlap between two federal acts just recently enacted. And we've got to dig in with the people, as I see it, that are associated with the administration of these acts, and see what we're up against. And until we do, we can't give you clear-cut
Well, that's why the mayor's suggestion has distinct merit, regardless of what happens Tuesday.
Well, don't you think the public is entitled to know, if possible, the effects of something like this? They may have a veto power on many millions of dollars right now and don't even realize what it is. That was my concern.
Well, we have to know. We have to know, and that's what the mayor's suggesting, that we know something about it. And the only way we're going to find out is go and find out.
My reading of the acts, I think what you say is completely true, but there are ambiguities in it, and I don't think you can say definitely this is it. Somebody could prove you wrong perhaps on it.
Well, maybe we ought to find a little bit more about what's involved in it before we start going out with assumptions and tying it into especially Proposition 1 or anything else until we have more facts.
Well, what's your recommendation? We're trying to find out.
Our recommendation is that if management requires any opposition from the council, that we give it to him. If it doesn't, that we instruct the manager to send somebody back along with Bud and you, if you wish to keep him at all times, representing the council.
What's the time schedule on this?
Well, there is no specific date. They're holding a whole bunch of
Take your own
explanation meetings.
Take your own time for the junket time. What would be called?
If you can make it, Tom, or are interested in doing it, check with Walter and Tom and Bud to see when they're going to set up their visit. Bud's due to go back next week anyway.
Bud was leaving, I think, Monday.
Well, this is mainly informative anyway, to see what's
strictly information.
Yeah.
We've already contacted Hugh Neal and asked him to get as much information available for us in the Washington office. And Bud's going back on Thursday along with this, and I still think some specific person in management who is involved in trying to bring these things to an understanding before the council should go on. And again, I agree with the council. If you can go, or any other member of the council can go.
Well, let me work with Walter. No further business?
Okay. Sit down, check that.
Yeah.
What? I move we file the report.
No, file the report? Okay. Mass transit bus service on freeways. Harry, do your pitch. Do you want to introduce your special guest first? He's down at your left.
I've forgotten his full and official title, so you better introduce our
Mr. William Hood,
Hurd.
H-U-R-D, assistant to the Assistant Administrator of the Housing and Home Finance Agency, the Office of Transportation.
I was afraid of that title.
That's pretty close.
Nobody gets it right. At least I didn't make a mistake. Mr. Hurd is out here from Washington, D.C. to give us the benefit of some of his thinking and information. Okay, sir, Harry?
We've worked on studies, had studies come into us quite continuously, and we've had the recommendations of several of our reports, and this was circulated to council last week so to get a look at it, and actually what it is a proposal for positive action. And I think I might just read portions of it and then have Marty Bowman give you some examples of the studies that we do have on the map and some of the thinking that's gone behind this. Marty and his staff have worked a lot with this, and we're right at the point where we need a proposal and a checkout on this. So let me go through this just to refresh your memories, or if you haven't read this. Previous surveys and fact-finding committees have been concerned primarily with the existing transit system and its operational and economic aspects. They've stressed the need for improvements to the system. The transit system in turn has suggested that improvements are needed on the street system, which may improve transit operating speeds. Rather than to follow the common approach of routine bus service on routine city streets, previous study was also given to the feasibility and separated bus right-of-ways, termed busways, as well as to the possible transit demonstration projects. Definite conclusions have been reached that the San Diego metropolitan area is not suited to rail mass rapid transit. Perhaps in the future this will be feasible, but at present we simply do not have the mass. Rubber-tired transit vehicles appear to offer the best solution. And here is the proposal. This study concerns the concept of operating express buses on the freeways, supplemented by local surface shuttle systems, as well as terminal parking lots. The freeway flyers would pull off the freeway at a few selected interchanges, take on or discharge passengers, and immediately return to the freeway. The concept is not new. However, it makes possible the expansion of the extremely limited use now being made of our existing freeways by the San Diego Transit System. The idea is bold, challenging, and imaginative. If the freeway bus can compete favorably in travel time with that of the private automobile, the need for high street capacity and parking garages in the downtown area would be reduced. Travel habits of the entire community could be changed and improved. However, while a public rider potential seems to be present, it is not possible to estimate the number of commuters who would forsake their private cars to ride express freeway buses. A test would be required. The success of the freeway flyer system will depend to a great extent upon the availability of local service to the freeway flyer stations. This service may be in the form of an abundance of off-street parking for private autos, or a local shuttle service with frequent and convenient headway. This report analyzes only the freeway bus system. It is assumed that the local service in the form of public or privately owned operated vehicles, taxis or minibuses can also be provided. We've used several assumptions. One, the freeway flyer travel time would closely approximate the travel time of automobiles. Two, property would not be purchased or leased for the purpose of creating parking lots for bus commuters. Property considered available is either in the category of city, state, or federally owned lands. And this is where we're thinking of the grounds over and under the freeways. This is actually what started the idea of putting this thing together. 3, shuttle service could be provided at all freeway flyer stops to ensure a flexible and coordinated system. 4, the number of freeway flyer stop locations would be at an absolute minimum to assure rapid service. 5, a federal grant would be available to assist in demonstrating and testing the plan. Scope. The initial bus system would utilize 57 miles of freeway. The focus or hub of the system would be at the central point of the freeway network. From there, the buses would radiate northwesterly on the San Diego Freeway, northerly on the Cabrillo Freeway, easterly on the Helix and Mission Freeways, and southerly on the San Diego Freeway to the Mexican border. In addition, the system should have sufficient flexibility to offer direct freeway-to-freeway service for those not having an origin or destination in downtown San Diego. Marty will put the... Where's Marty? Why don't you start sticking your big map up there as I read this through, then I'll turn some of this over to you so you can point out some of the test areas. All existing interchanges and future interchanges on these freeways were examined and inventoried. At each stop, a determination was made of the feasibility of locating a freeway flyer stop. The freeway flyer proposal could be instituted through a variety of legal and operational methods. It does not necessarily assume public ownership or operation, only local governmental control. A metropolitan mass transportation system depicting the use of freeway flyers will be shown by Marty. Marty, I think what I'll do at this point is turn over the technical aspects, which I think can visually be explained better than it can be read, and take up the science studies that you've had on this, and then I'll finish up with it.
Well, this is a map of the master plan of freeways and major streets on which we have superimposed this idea of a freeway flyer system that Mr. Shiloh told you about, with basically the hub of the system here in the area in or near downtown San Diego, and then going out pretty much in the direction of the spokes of a wheel along the various freeways that are now or will be available to us. He mentioned to you the Helix Freeway, or 94, which could provide service as far east as La Mesa and El Cajon. The Mission Freeway, or Interstate 8, again serving the east and northeast portions of the metropolitan area. The Cabrillo Freeway, 395, north to serve the Kearny Mesa area, and then of course the entire length of Interstate 5 freeway to and through the downtown area from all the way from Sorrento or Del Mar on the north to the Mexican border on the south. Now, the idea is expandable so that at such time as the future freeways are completed, and of course the next big one that we're going to be experiencing is the Inland Freeway, Interstate 805. It too could have this type of service on it. Now, we've gone so far as to make a physical inventory of these freeways that I've described to you. And if you were closer to this map, you could see some red marks. Some of them are squares and some of them are arrow points. The squares would represent interchange locations along these freeways where we think it would be feasible to develop off-street parking. This on the basis of a park and ride concept, where the passengers on the freeway flyers would drive their automobile to a point at or close to the freeway interchange, get on the freeway flyer bus, and be expressed into the downtown San Diego or to another freeway to provide freeway-to-freeway service. The red arrow points would be locations where we did not find it easily feasible, at least, to create off-street parking or park and ride areas, but where it would be quite feasible to provide terminals, so that these are places where people could get on and off the freeway flyers, and places where it would be feasible for the bus to leave the freeway and immediately return to the freeway without having to make a lot of unnecessary travel on surface streets. As I say, this is on the basis of a physical inventory. We have actually investigated every one of these places on the ground. It is by no means thoroughly complete. There are other factors here that have to be considered and other points along the freeway system to study. But we went far enough into it to lead us to the conclusion that something like this could be practical.
Yes, would you do one other thing? Would you break out one or two of the other maps showing a sample of how these buses may get on or off the freeway and the studies you made there, and also a couple of sample shuttle systems if you have them?
Well, Your Honor, while he's doing this, has this plan been used in other cities, or is this something new?
To the best of our knowledge, there have been freeway flyers as such. Los Angeles has one. However, I haven't been able to find out of one where it was integrated with a shuttle system. There have been, for example, out around the Hollywood Bowl, there's a parking arrangement that they have, and that the people get out and get aboard the bus, and they go to a specific spot downtown that's centrally located. But nothing like this where the shuttle systems are an integral part in the areas where they have to have the transportation. Why don't you just describe one at a time, if that might save you.
These actually get sort of repetitive. The principle is pretty much the same on all of them. This happens to be the freeway and shuttle bus station, which would be located on the I-5, the Montgomery Freeway at this point, at 13th Street, which is in National City. These are the main freeway lines here. And for instance, the southbound freeway flyer could leave the freeway on the off-ramp, come under the freeway on the street system, stop at a location such as this, which would be immediately under the freeway bridge, pick up or discharge passengers, and immediately on this ramp return to the freeway and continue its trip. The idea being here that we would only pick this general type of an interchange, or even better, a simple diamond, where the bus merely pulls off, quickly loads and unloads passengers, and returns to the freeway. The reverse movement here for the northbound bus would be off on this ramp here, a loop, perhaps a bus stop right in this area, and returning on the ramp immediately back to the freeway.
I think it's a good place to point out where the bus stop is located there. The population and the transit requirements might be that a shuttle system would be feasible, but if the shuttle system would not be feasible, it certainly isn't feasible to have a bus there now. Consequently, it would be a plus service for that area that in the future they could use it, or they could park nearby and ride the bus, or take a cab or a jitney or whatever might be available if shuttle service were not.
That's one question, Mike, please. Where were the parking lots in this area? Were there any parking lots for this particular one?
I'd have to look on the underneath on the big map again. Let me see now. This is right about there. He does show a parking area, and I think one of the areas he had in mind here was the area under the freeway structure itself.
Okay.
Wherever possible, we try to determine parking areas that were on publicly owned land.
Yes.
As being most readily available.
I'll move along, and with this to finish it, then open it up to questions and answers if there are any, and I think you'll get a better picture of it. Some of the questions may be answered. Starting at the bottom of page 4, the travel time studies. Typical travel times have been calculated and are compared to existing bus service. Auto travel time on the freeway has been calculated on the assumption that a speed of 50 miles an hour could be maintained over the prescribed route. The freeway bus route travel speed was assumed to be 40 miles an hour, with an additional 1.75 minutes added to each stop made at an interchange. Travel time over the existing bus route is not rigidly comparable to freeway bus travel time because the present bus service terminates at Horton Plaza in downtown. The travel time by the freeway flyer is calculated only to terminal points such as 1st and Cedar Street, 8th Street and Ash, 16th and F, depending on individual destinations. Passengers might walk to downtown from these terminals or require 5 minutes or more travel time on a shuttle bus. Shuttle bus. At all freeway bus stop locations, it is convenient and possible to establish a local transportation service that would satisfactorily meet the community needs. The shuttle bus system would be tailored to the requirements of the immediate area which it serves. I'd like to note here, for example, some of the concern of the people at La Mesa and El Cajon, as you recall, during the Schrade Mills hearing was that they didn't have a great deal of service and didn't feel that they should participate wholly. However, if they had a large parking lot and their community felt that they wanted to try a shuttle system, or maybe they'd want to use taxi cabs or jitneys or whatever might develop, that this allows each community, as the need develops, to have this implemented. Possible routings for such service are shown for downtown, North Park, Mission Bay, and the Point Loma areas. Shuttle bus transfer locations are also indicated for National City and El Cajon City in figures 2 and 3. Federal grants. On September 10, 1964, a report was submitted to the City Council analyzing the Urban Mass Transportation Act of 1964. The proposed freeway flyer system would supplement existing service and should qualify for a 2/3 federal demonstration grant by a Housing and Home Finance Agency, we hope. In testing and demonstrating the system, care should be taken to assure full flexibility. Potentials of the freeway to the freeway service should be explored. The method of operating organization should exclude any control by the State Public Utilities Commission. Now, the conclusions and recommendations. 1, there is a potential for mass transit service utilizing the freeway system in the San Diego metropolitan area. 2, a freeway flyer system closely coordinated with the local shuttle service should be demonstrated and tested. 3, the freeway flyer system can meet the public transportation demands of the majority of potential passengers. 4, a freeway flyer system should remain flexible as to routing and scheduling. There should be no control by the State Public Utilities Commission. 5, an appropriate state local government agency should begin immediately to investigate the feasibility of a federally supported freeway flyer demonstration project. And with that, I would ask that after the council discusses this, I would hope that they would see the merits of this and ask for the demonstration project and put in the proper requests and applications to the federal government for participation in this project. That's it.
First question. Marty, from an engineering standpoint, do you feel that this plan is feasible and one which your department would recommend that we proceed on?
Well, we have investigated the physical feasibility, Mr. Walsh, and that's as far as I can answer. And on that basis, yes, I think that there is no reason why these freeway flyers could not operate on the freeways, could utilize surface street systems.
As a traffic engineer, then
As far as the financial feasibility, you're out of this.
Well, I have no experience in it. I'm not a
The whole question is the demonstration project. I think maybe I can clear this up a little bit from that end of it. To begin with, this not only anticipates, but it's mandatory that the transit system fully cooperate with this. It's not to be it's to be an addition to the system. As I understand it, and I talked to Jim Haw, and you correct me, Gene, if I'm giving bad information, that one of the real problems that the existing transit system has is that to operate on the freeways, they have to prove that their route is profitable to PUC, and with that, they have not been able to prove it, and therefore they haven't been able to even try this sort of thing. Now, there are a great number of assumptions, and as you recall, the report of the most recent study stated they really didn't know whether transportation was needed, that maybe automobiles were going to take care of it. However, I think it's our obligation to bring the best possible system forward, and with full cooperation and study with the transit system, and they're certainly more familiar with economics and the feasibility, and also our rate consultant who is certainly familiar with that, and we can only come so close, and then it's just going to take the sample trial run, and of course that's the purpose, I assume, of the federal government to participate to help come up with these answers to solve the transportation problems, and that's why the trial run on it.
Okay, my same question over again then, Marty. As a traffic engineer in the engineering department, do you recommend that we go ahead and make the request?
Yes, I see no
I mean,
harm.
I see no difference in this than when we talk about single lanes or one-way streets and different things like that. That's a flow of traffic, which is your bailiwick. And so I'm saying this is another flow of traffic, whether or not economically it's feasible. As far as the circulation of traffic goes, your department is willing to go ahead, the manager's office, go ahead and recommend that we apply for such a grant. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, the second one that's concerned then is the transit company. Have you had an opportunity to review this and gain what are some of your feelings with regard to?
Not to any degree. We have just finished partially runs over, one or two runs over some of these routes, and with a bus, and with the turnouts, and with the stops, and all as far as time is concerned. We've had no opportunity to look at it from an economical standpoint. Some of the proposals, we realize the freeways are not constructed yet, and they couldn't be put in operation at the present time. But we just taken a preliminary look at it because we haven't had time to really go into it.
Well, would 1/3 the cost of I'm sure revenues would meet 1/3 the cost of operation if the grant covered the other 2/3 on the trial basis. And that's my next question is that the way it operates, that the grant covers 2/3 of the cost? So,
Jack, could I ask and answer a question at the same time?
no.
The
You're gonna do it anyway.
the economics of this thing, certainly they have to be tried and tested. Now, we either will or we won't qualify for the government program. But the real problem that we have is transit and what is right and what is wrong, and we need a test to prove this, I think. Now, if this system proves to be bad, even after experts look this over and we implement it and try it, if this is bad, then how bad is something else going to be? And this is the thing we have to look at. This may be expensive, but if the citizens of San Diego want transit, then I think we have the obligation to give them the best and the fastest transit possible at the lowest cost. So even if this does turn to be a cost, maybe of a substantial nature, if it has been tested and proved to be the most economical, I think it has. I think this is the reason for the request, as far as I'm concerned. It is.
Well, your other question, I think you can direct
Right.
gentleman from Washington.
Basically, Harry, let me calm Harry down a little bit here. Just I think the philosophy of the proposal on this thing is excellent. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that we go ahead and try it. Now, the people who are going to be trying it, number one, the city, who is a potential purchaser of the transit system who may continue to operate it if, with the help of the city and the cooperation, we can make it profitable. And then the federal government, who is interested in the general problem of transit throughout the country. So I think the three of us have to decide whether or not it's feasible and discuss the pros and cons of whether or not we apply for the thing. I think on the grounds, and our engineer puts out, it makes sense. It sounds like a real feasible and a real attractive plan. You haven't had the opportunity to test it out yet, but you are, and I'm real glad to hear, running the dry runs on the thing. So you will be in a position shortly to tell us that it's going to cost so much, or because that's your business. You know the cost of equipment and the mileage and the drivers and so on. And the third question is, assuming that A and B are in favor of it, what about C?
Well, I think you have D too, Jack. I don't know, maybe you have a plan of how we get out under the jurisdiction of the Public Utilities Commission, but I haven't been able to determine that.
I think at this point, a couple comments from Mr. Hurd might be in order. We briefed on this just a little bit before we came in here.
Mr. Mayor, to answer the gentleman's question as to cost, the answer is no. The revenues could not be used to provide local share. Federal grant and the local grant together cover the net cost of the project, which is the cost
interrupt you for a second. Then the net cost of the project, then could the city subsidize the remaining third, or?
Yes.
Okay.
As to whether we approve the project, I can only say we have to have an application, but as the project has been described today, it sounds as if it's an eligible project. Whether it fits into the demonstration project and all of our requirements, we really can't tell until we see the results in more detail and are able to look at the proposal that you present. The initiative and the presentation of the proposal has to come from the locality.
We do not have to be publicly owned to qualify for the grant. This is another area that once in a while we run into.
No, the city in this case, presumably, or some other public body in the area would be the project sponsor and applicant, and the party with which we would enter into contract. The participation of the local transit system would be under contract to the public agency sponsor. That is, they would participate through a contract with the city or the county or whoever was the...
Which helps to dissipate a little bit of Mr. Holmes' apprehension about PUC.
Well, I think an answer, and I thought about this PUC thing, and that's why a portion of this states freeway flyer system should remain flexible as to routine scheduling, and there should be no control by the Public Utilities Commission. There's a reason for that being in there. Now, the Public Utilities Commission has no control over the local government, correct? If we own the system, we're out from under their control. So, one of the possibilities would be the city or the county or a joint powers group owns this system, getting it out from under PUC, and then they lease it out to, say, the San Diego Transit System or who it may be, whichever would prove to be the most profitable and feasible. And I certainly recognize the PUC problem as being one of the main stumbling blocks, at least this is the way it's expressed to me, to flexibility, and this thing has to be flexible.
All right, I think
We got another alternative. We got another alternative here, and that is the public body does not have to own the system. The public body has to own the sponsorship of the project, and we can contract with San Diego Transit or any other for that matter, but San Diego Transit for the operation of the system under this phase of their operation. This is not the total transit operation, but this phase.
Now we're starting to get into the area of franchise, though, and are the freeways excluded from our franchise? And if we went to another company or a contract company, then wouldn't we be in violation of the franchise that we have?
Well, let's leave the legal questions until we get to that part of the discussion, because there will be some ramifications from PUC and other controls. It's our understanding, or at least it's my understanding, that we do have a great deal of immunity, if not entirely, from PUC control under this kind of a project and under these kind of terms and conditions. That's the reason that you have an experimental project, is so that you have the flexibility of trying something different. And I think that the answer to Jack's question in the legal area should be left to the point where we get into that discussion if and when we get draw up papers, because then you'll run into some specific laws and requirements and this and that. Do you have any comment on that, Mr. Snower?
Well,
from the attorney's point of
yes, I might say that as far as an operation which continues to run entirely under private ownership, there would still exist PUC jurisdiction. But it's my feeling that the approach to the PUC under a federal grant and arrangement under this type of circumstance would be entirely different than it would be under authorizing routes, rates, and frequencies based entirely upon your own separate operations. I feel that their whole approach to it would be completely different.
this would be done, in other words, two different operations, and you would more or less control and the operations be someplace else. This would be restricted, wouldn't it, to your city limits?
No.
Maybe I can get into this just a second on this. The intention would be to fully implement the needs of the metropolitan area, number one. Now, the second thing, it
should, and properly so, be in full cooperation with the existing system. Now, when I say full cooperation, I would assume it would either be to your advantage or to your disadvantage to operate the Freeway Flyer as an operating company. As to the shuttle service, which I classify the majority of the San Diego transit system as shuttle service, this may be the part that you would like or not like. I think this is what the test will have to show, and if it's not practical for the San Diego transit system to operate it, but yet if the Freeway Flyer generates a tremendous amount of additional traffic for the shuttle system, then it's going to be desirable for them. So again, that's the reason for the test.
Well, this is something that only can be determined by the test. It has been, shuttle service has been used in some instances. I can't recall one that has been too successful in the shuttle part of it.
I think our concept, our confusion here, I think, correct me, Harry, if I'm wrong, but I sort of get the impression here with pneumatics is interfering a little bit. You say shuttle service, that word sort of has a connotation of something running around the block, and actually what you're talking about really is neighborhood service, or an area of service, picking up in an area and bringing into this area.
That's what I was referring to. These, as I understand it, would be more or less confined to freeways.
Absolutely confined to them. The thing is,
they would not run off of the freeways.
Just to charge and discharge the one stop. The whole system, as you can see, would break down if you took a bus off of the freeway and circulated around a community for 10 minutes, then got back on the freeway. The idea is the man who wants to get from one end to the other, that he's not spending all of his time touring where everyone else wants to go. Just like you'd hop in your car, you'd drive the length of the freeway to get where you want to get off, and the only disadvantage or time loss would be that 1.75 minutes while the bus goes off and discharges, and that's also why it calls for a minimum of stops. And this is where your local, I'll call it local transit systems, do pick up and take care of the service. For example, if there was a drop-off up here at 18th Street off of Interstate 5, and the Freeway Flyer dropped down, and there's a terminal point, well, the San Diego Transit System might use their existing buses. They might find that shuttle buses or smaller mini buses would be more economical for frequency of service. But the person who in El Cajon hops on the Freeway Flyer, rides down to this point, off, and they're on a shuttle bus in that area, and they make the trip more quickly. And that's the whole idea behind the thing. Conceivably, a man in Chula Vista going to say after the word could be there in a matter of minutes where not takes an hour where you think something else because of the other interference in circulation. That's the concept, right? Okay.
As Harry indicates in one of the first paragraphs, the concept is not new. But I was wondering if the Housing and Home Agency, since the concept is not new, indicates that it's been tried in other areas, not necessarily even close to us in California, but maybe in other areas of the country. Have you had much experience with this type of a project before, or is it unique in its concept, just leaning on other similar ideas but nothing?
We have not had a demonstration project along these lines. There have been, as has been indicated, some experience with it in the rest of the country, very limited, however, and as far as I know, no attempt made to really assess what's happening and why it's happening, which would be our interest in this type of project.
Would be a reason for being in it.
Jack, yeah, if this weren't true, there would be no reason for their to participate. In other words, if it had already been determined in other areas that this is or is not successful, then they wouldn't be interested in it, because it's strictly on an experimental basis.
Well, what do we have to do from here to I mean, the idea has been presented, it's been brought forward by Harry, and our city staff has done some limited investigation. The transit has started on a proposal. We find out that in all probability we are eligible for the federal funds. What are the next, collectively, what are the next steps that we can take?
Well, as I understand them, you have to put in your application to the federal government. Now, they are either going to accept it or reject it. I'll talk on that in just a second. Now, if they reject it, it's still a program as an alternative for us to look into. Assuming the federal government was never there, we do have a transportation problem in San Diego that has to be solved. And with this, whether the federal government participates or not, we should certainly consider and take a look at it. It's much more desirable with them participating. But if we do go ahead on this, why, what are the alternatives if we don't? For example, you're going to be looking at various types of legislation which may or may not be acceptable to the city or the other cities, or to be to their advantage. I think that we have a responsibility to come forward with that which is the best for our community, even if it is a liability. I think that if the community wants it, and it's a liability, our responsibility is to give that much better service at a lower cost if possible, and get these alternatives and tests forward.
Is there any estimate by Mr. Bowman on what kind of money you're talking about for this kind of a...
May I make a suggestion at this point? Now, you're asking questions that nobody can answer at the moment, I'm sure, because it's...
Well, it seems to me that this has been pretty well talked out, and I thought that...
No, Al, let me make a suggestion. And the only reason I interrupt at this point, because I think we can save a lot of time. Traffic...
It was an unpopular question.
No, I'll give you an answer. Just so, traffic has not entered into the aspects of operating because they don't know the operating costs. The only person in the room who can really give us the facts and figures in terms of local operating costs are the people from the bus company. And so what I would suggest is that if you agree with the concept, that we make authorize, or at least at this point, Mr. Hurd is here, Mr. Holmes is here, Harry's here, and the attorney's here, sit down and see if there is some common agreement to put in an informal application. And from this, whether there is or not, we'll have to determine. But if there is some informal agreement, then we're going to have to call on the bus company to come up with some kind of estimates of costs which can be included in the formal application, which must follow the informal application. And here's another step in the answer to Jack's question. We don't go through the formal process of filing an application now. Is this correct, Mr. Hurd?
That's right.
And then we make an informal request, a letter form. They send a man out who sits down and discusses the terms and conditions and whether it's feasible, practical, economically, and otherwise. That it would be a matter of negotiating out exactly what we're attempting to find out and how much it's going to cost. And at this point, then you come back to the council. Here's what the costs are going to be. You file a formal application, you submit it, and then if they take action at that level, they either approve or disapprove it on the formal application.
I think for immediate action, what would be necessary, there are certain requirements that the federal government has. One is a program, which, let's say this is a program. The other thing, and their reason for being involved, is the reporting procedures, so that they can get the benefit, the proper types of reports. So, if we would order the proper people within the city to develop a proper reporting system with the HHFA, so that will be ready to go in proper form, then with the proposal added, and on the proposal would be the cost studies, then we are ready to give it to HHFA, and at that point, then they're in a position to accept or reject. But if we do not put it in proper form, and if our application with the proper information isn't available, this will delay it. I'd like to ask Mr. Hurd a question. If we moved ahead on this, so we decide to go ahead on it on our own, because I think time is of the essence. If we decide to go ahead on our own, and let's just for the sake of argument, I'm just using a number because I have no idea what the thing is going to cost until these figures come in, but let's suppose that we're a total project of say $300,000. If we went ahead on our own and then did qualify, would we be in a position to get the $200,000 rebate, or do we have to stand still until we get the okay?
No, we won't enter into a project unless until we sign a contract.
I see. So retroactively, we would lose that. I see. Well, so that's talking about.
Actually, the chances of even picking up a project that's already going is pretty slight.
Yeah. So we hurt our chances.
unless the project is designed at the beginning so that it meets some of our ideas as to how this becomes a useful demonstration. The chances of getting this together
Actually, it was just a point to try to accelerate it, but it looks like we might be trying to move a little too fast there.
I couldn't recommend.
I would, pardon? Your approach, I think, is the one that ought to be followed, and get the preliminaries done on that.
I would recommend to the council that if you agree basically in the concept, or that you want to pursue it, that you authorize Terry as a committee of one to sit and meet with these people and see if there is agreement, and come back and report to the council. That's the first step.
You do that this afternoon, Aaron, when we leave.
Sure.
Well, let me ask this then. Why would it be different? Why wouldn't the city manager be authorized by the council to meet with all of these people rather than a member of the city council? That's a little bit out of the realm of the city councilman's job to be going into this sort of thing. It seems to me that if there is agreement here that this should be checked out, that the city council should authorize the city manager rather than a member of the council.
You all right?
Okay. Agreeable. You made the presentation. The only reason I
I'm eager to see it move ahead, and I wouldn't want to put any stumbling block in it, even me.
Well, this is much safer for you.
Since when did I start getting safe?
You don't have to.
I move that we authorize and instruct the city manager, city attorney to sit down with the people from the transit and with Mr. Hurd to see what procedures we would have to follow to qualify for an application for a grant for this trial system.
Second.
see if there's a field.
I think there should be, more in this than just that. Some of these distance and travel times and all this thing, I don't know about the southern part or part of the other parts of the district, but as far as it pertains to a couple of these routes, they're not very realistic.
Well,
because,
again, I think we're talking about the concept.
This is the idea
what I'm going
thing.
to say is, when we say just talk about the feasibility of a trial, I think we're going to have to, or maybe...
Mr. Holmes has already suggested that they've already put one or two buses out in the field to try and see if they meet these. Didn't you?
Yes,
Yes,
we have on.
He's got this
certain of the
information. I think
routes.
basically
I don't have
what
the full report.
No, I know, but what I'm saying basically is, if Mr. Holmes, for instance, and Mr. Hurd, and the manager sit down this afternoon and discuss this issue, and Mr. Holmes says, we want no part of it, then there's no use pursuing it. If Mr. Hurd says that, well, you guys got a great idea, but I don't think it qualifies, or I say it don't qualify, then there's no use in pursuing it. But if between the two of them and the manager's office, we come up with some understanding that there is an area of agreement, then we can proceed with the informal request and draw up some of these things. He's going to be doing some more research in terms of bus times, the mechanical things. We're going to have to call on him to get some estimates on cost. How much does it take to run a bus on the freeway at so much a mile, or whatever those figures are? And all of these things have to be developed.
Your Honor, I'd like to mention one other thing on this. Of course, naturally, San Diego is primarily interested in this. However, the greatest beneficiaries of this plan, I think, is quite obvious, those at the greatest distance. And the outlying areas such as La Mesa, El Cajon, National City, Chula Vista, Imperial Beach, those people naturally are extremely interested, and in order that they know what we're doing and certainly have them in mind, we probably ought to have some way of getting their groups and their cities informed so that they can think and suggest ideas and directions to go, because I think they're really the best way for this to ultimately come forward, and I hope very quickly, would probably be with a joint powers agreement where each one of these cities are involved, are able to see that their interests are protected, offer suggestions and so forth, and it might be just real fine for the city of San Diego to head it up, but maybe we could head it up, and the county, being the top government body over the areas of jurisdiction, would be involved too, because we all are involved in the transportation problem, and we're all interested in solving it, and I think this would help eliminate misunderstandings.
Well, you have committees, and you also already have joint powers agreements set up in the field of transportation, and I think this probably would be the body. I mean, the idea has originated from here, and I think it's real fine, but we've already realized that the problem we have in transit that we're talking about is the metropolitan problem, and that's the whole reason the joint powers agreement, the traffic coordinating group was set up, representations from all of the cities and so on. And I think it is eligible. That's the time it should be turned over and referred to the committee, and then our manager and attorney would sit down with this group and say, all right, here's what we found out, and I thought all of us are concerned, we all should run with this and make a proposal on that basis.
Well, Jack, I somewhat agree with you, but I have to agree with Alan that the manager's office should do it. Now, I just think it's important that somebody gives some direction to someone to notify these other areas, get them the reports, get them the minutes, and a rundown of what we're doing with them in mind, rather than all of a sudden somebody jumps up in complete panic. You guys have been running for a month alone, and you haven't said a word to us. That's the thing we're going to eliminate.
Your Honor, let me speak to that. The city manager and the city attorney are well acquainted with that fact. And so, in the council authorizing the city manager and the city attorney to check this out with the federal government, I'm very certain all of those matters will be taken into consideration.
Well, Mr. Hertz is not going to be available too long. He'll be leaving here shortly. But my suggestion again would be that if we can get this conversation turned over to actually finding if there are any areas of agreement, and a recommendation or a report back from the manager or whoever attends this session, and in determining whether or not we can come to an agreement that this should be tried. That's the first question that has to be answered. And if this is true, then we can follow up on what Harry suggests, call on the other committees in terms of the joint power arrangement or through the county committee, through the board of supervisors, whatever other methods we might explore. But the first question that has to be resolved, I think, is whether there is any possible agreement between the agencies that are right here.
Yes. Well, I'm in favor of going in that direction. However, with some reservation as to our financial obligation to so we have no figures. We talked about $1 million. We talked about $300,000. Since we're going to bear 1/3 of it, and the general outline that's been presented to us is very general. So what we approve, if we should approve that the manager and the transit firm and Mr. Herb get together today, it's not an ultimate.
It's not a commitment.
It's not a commitment to the fact that we have committed ourselves financially and continue on to that point. But we're just at the first phase of it.
Well, there's no commitment until a contract. Number one, the federal government's going to have to accept our program. We've got to get the paperwork together, and we're going to have to agree that this is the paperwork that wants to go to the federal government. The federal government says, we hopefully, yes, and then at that point, we authorize a contract, and that's when we start committing ourselves.
Yes, and I understand is that if the government approves the first phase of it, they'll still study into more detail, and they'll still have to continue to go along with up to the point. And if the transfer firm cannot go along with us altogether, then that sort of stops out, and then we'll have to figure on something else, and we hope to continue on. But this is a very preliminary phase of it.
Well, I like the concept, and I want to solidly commit myself to looking into it further.
Did I hear you say the answer is maybe, and that's final?
All in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Okay. Mr. Manager, you got a new job. Where are you from?
One, nothing on two. Page 2.
Nothing on two.
Let me see now. In regards to 8, is there a reason why the telephone companies don't put this in, or they don't go this route?
No, they don't. We actually, we're ending up in a total lifeguard tower proposition in much better shape than initially contemplated. Our total cost is way down by separating the telephone service to the towers from the general contract, which is the way we used to do it. This is providing the conduits and the feed into the tower. And for 11 locations.
The telephone company is an amazing thing. You call in for an installation, and they can take and do something in 2 minutes, and it's a $6 charge, or they can spend all day long running an extension line, still $6.
Anything else on 2?
One comment I'd like to make. If you've ever tried to go back and chase things through a capital improvement program, it's ridiculous. We never did find them yesterday.
Oh,
I don't know, it's just...
What was the CIP number listed?
yep.
Sure is, and you go through 3 books to find it, some of them are 63, 64, and they're under number numbers, and they're part of other...
Well, what's the 403 designated after? Isn't that the year?
Yeah, let me mention, there is good reason for this, and I think we gave a report to council on it. If you recall, we came up with this power thing, the prices were quite high on it. No, I'm mentioning why we did this, so we combined in 2 years.
Fine, I found that one. That wasn't the one I couldn't completely find. I'm just
You shouldn't have to find them. You have an administrative assistant and have them deliver them to you. Now, if the management staff can't find them, why, it must be pretty
I
tough.
just called Marty and said, I give up, Marty. Open my book.
Well, why don't you just have him do it for
Just
you?
want you to know it didn't vote for anything in common, councilman.
Well, you know what, I don't give a damn whether you did or not.
You don't need my one vote, huh?
No, it isn't that, but I'm not...
Doesn't matter much in this election, but it does once in a while in
And I know, I'll romance you before November the 2nd.
I heard the figures voted, if I could take it aside, a guy cracked a joke this morning about the Board of Education. And he said, chairman of the board the other rapped his gavel and he says, all right, all those in favor signify by saying amen.
Anything else on 2? Page 3. Nothing on 3. Is this Price is Right on printed envelope, Jack? On number 14?
Right, that's my bid. It's got to be right because I saw all the other bids before I put it in.
Page 4.
On,
Get this down.
Yeah, I haven't had it.
102, what do we do on this? Is that the hearing?
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honor, item 106, I think is a very optimistic matter.
Yeah, I wondered about that.
How in the heck can you do that when you...
We're pre-committing the public. The little people.
You may not be our councilman, but you'll be our band commissioner.
Yeah. Next step, I'll do the band.
He can still be appointed.
Retain your band commissioner. That's money you spend on that campaign.
Yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it?
I started a program and I want to see it continue on.
Yeah, that's much better.
That's my law.
Okay, nothing else on 4? 5. Hey, look at the Hoyer here.
That's Thursday.
It was on 23rd.
Today's the 21st.
Today's 21.
Oh.
Nothing the matter with you.
Good morning.
Tom, put away that Chinese calendar. It's not working.
I get confused. The year of the dragon.
What year is this, the rabbit?
I looked at the wrong one this
Is this
morning.
the rabbit year?
No, the year of the dragon fell at the year of the rabbit. It's the year of dragon.
I'm dragging.
Nothing on 5. 6. 113. Who wrecked the sedan? Or did we?
Nobody wrecked it.
Why wasn't it in the budget?
I think we reported to council in connection with the maintenance of fire department vehicles that we were proposing to make additional use of the men who are doing that work with fire department classification. We're setting up an operating program now where these men will respond under certain fire conditions from the shop area. To do that, we have to have a vehicle in which they can respond, which will provide that vehicle.
What kind of vehicle are we looking at for $3,500?
That's way over the price of the station wagons we've been paying.
Yeah, the estimate shows a car at $23.40, and we have to buy a siren for it, some red lights, the radio, and that makes up the difference.
My kids put that kit together for $75. What's your trouble?
Could we get some of the red lights from the Barbara Worth that's coming down?
You're all business. All depends how election goes.
I understand some other fellow wants them.
Well, I'll tell you, if the salary raise does be passed, this is way too much for a car.
I can see this is going to be a great day.
Next Deputy Mayor, I'd like to comment on item 114. We sent this communication out to council so that we could get some direction from council as to what to put back on docket. We've tried to review thoroughly what has come in to date in connection with this property that is owned by the city and which was proposed in a land exchange between the Honco Corporation and the city. And on the basis of the numerous calls that have been received and offers that are being made now for property, we have suggested a change in the original proposal that was submitted to negotiate the sale only on that part that is irregular shaped and surrounds land now owned by Honco Corporation, and which could best be developed by either the city buying them out or they buying the city's land, because without that, good planning on that would not permit proper development. On the other parcel, which can be separated and which can be developed separately, we are proposing that that be put out to public sale.
Let me ask you a question. Couldn't this, in effect, this irregular piece be put out to bid also in this manner? That Honco's property is an integral part of it, obviously, and they must have a value that they put on it. And if they throw their property in and we throw our property in and it goes out to bid, they've got an automatic bid on their half built in. See what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that might put us at a disadvantage, though, Harry, by an exaggerated, inflated value on their own. Then they don't have to bid. I mean, they can slap in.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you think that way.
This is correct, because it seems to me the way we're doing it, where we've had an independent fee appraisal of the property, and the appraisal is not low. Appraisal appears to us to be well in order, and the property department has appraised it themselves to indicate whether the independent appraisers in the ballpark.
Okay, does that seem to be
We
acceptable?
have with that this trade of this other parcel. I should point that out, that we have to acquire from Honco either by negotiation or by eminent domain procedure, which is the piece of the 12 acres or something we need in connection with the Genesee Street improvement, which was valued in the appraisal pretty low. They are willing to proceed with this negotiated transfer. They would like, of course, to obtain all of it. And there's some, as we indicated here, there's some moral merit to the city considering that, except now we have offers from other people that are substantial enough beyond that submitted by the Honco people in accordance with the fee appraisal that I think warrant putting that piece out to public bid.
See, if I remember correctly, your report recommends that we swap for this one parcel and the other two goes to bid.
Well, there's a considerable payment to be made to the city for...
$350,000 or so.
Well, that was for the total.
Yes, I'm not speaking along those lines. Is that basically what the amendments are, or the changes?
That's correct, that we negotiate with Honco Corporation on parcel 1 so that they will give to the city, a deed to the city, the right-of-ways required for Genesee Street, and the difference in the appraised values that they pay in cash.
What's the difference in appraised values, Walter?
Oh, about $100,000 and some odd $1,000.
In our favor?
In our favor.
You see, they appraised our property about 500. No, theirs about 500, and ours about how much?
$12,000.
12,000 an acre. Isn't that correct? Along those lines? And that's one appraisal. Is that what we generally do? Have one appraisal by certified appraiser?
This was an independent certified appraiser. This was reviewed, and all of these are reviewed by our own appraisers in the city forces to make sure that the appraisals are reasonable ones.
What are you recommending now that we do?
We're recommending that in connection with parcel 1 that we proceed on the basis of an exchange for their land that we need for Genesee Street and a negotiated sale. There's a money difference in here. So it in
Your original proposal, which is I think what you're sticking with, aren't you?
No.
You're not sticking with that?
You have a map there, Bill. Put it up. It's easier to talk from a map than just without anything. Our change, originally we proposed that the entire ownership of the city be handled on a negotiated sale basis, with this land trade involved in it that we need for street purposes. We've received a number of inquiries and an indication of interest by people in the purchase of this land on the top of this hill. As far as parcel number 1, we don't recommend that it be put up to public sale because of the unusual shape of it. The parcel 1 you can see is an unusual shaped parcel. The surrounding land in total, except for on the west side, which is school and youth center property, is owned by Honco Corporation. The reasonable development of it, streetwise, layout, everything, can be best accomplished if it's done as one parcel of land. They've indicated a willingness to pay the appraised value for that property, which is 12,000 an acre, and to sell to us the land that we need for Genesee Street for $500. We feel this is a good proposition. Now, as far as parcel 2 is concerned, this isn't dependent upon any surrounding ownership because it's surrounded one side by Torrey Pines Road, actually some rather steep hillside, and the city-owned park property to the north and other city-owned property to the west, so it is actually a deep canyon in there.
Where are they in relation?
So it is a separate parcel of land, and this can be sold, we feel, reasonably independently of parcel number 1.
Where are they in relationship to each other? I mean, they within a block or two, or 10
Oh no, they adjoin.
They're attached right here.
Oh, I see. I get it.
See?
Now, you have this broken up into parcel 2 and parcel 3. It's still just parcel 2.
Well,
There's
it's
in parcel
no.
3 that portion which can't be built on.
That's correct.
It's buried right in here.
But it's sold as one entity.
It's sold
Sold as one entity, they keep that as an open space reservation.
What is the little gooseneck up at the top of parcel 2? The Summers property or Honco property is that up above here, right?
No, that's school and...
The youth center is right here, right?
No, that's park there.
Youth center right here, park, frontage here, and here.
That's all feet here.
Thank you, Alan.
Torrey Pines Church.
Yeah.
That other little point is a steep canyon.
Well, is this of any value to this property, really? I'm wondering why you don't see it. Is it access?
Yeah,
As a
it's
matter of
the
fact,
potential is access.
absolutely essential. As a matter of fact, I had to
That's the
change
only access.
the boundaries of this parcel in order to make it completely self-sufficient. Because this road in here is, you see, actually the off-site road necessary to serve your subdivision. There are no other roads in or out. Our original delineation had parcel 1 encompassing this gooseneck. We did alter that when we came back with this alternate recommendation to go trade here and sale here at public auction.
Without the gooseneck, you had no alternative except to send it to the landline.
Actually, there's just a little involvement right in here, so that this subdivision here will pay its proper share of 1/2 the street. But it still leaves this unit very independent.
Well, then you changed your recommendation.
Yes, sir.
And is
That's what you're-
is Honco gonna still buy it?
They have indicated that they are willing to proceed in this basis.
I see. And then if they are willing to proceed, are you gonna recommend that that the deal be consummated?
Yes. Yes, our recommendation to council is on parcel 1, we negotiate the sale, we buy the land we need for the Genesee Street right-of-way. In parcel 2, 3, and 3A, that we put it out to public bid.
And they'll most likely be the highest.
They'll probably be a bidder.
We hope so.
We've indicated there's a real odd situation with this, which we pointed out to council and was a consideration in our original proposal. We deal with Honco Corporation on this. They constructed all the way down Torrey Pines Road from quite a ways north of this parcel, all the way down to La Jolla Shores Drive, a sewer line. This is some years ago. They paid the entire cost of that sewer line, $100 and some odd thousand. Normally, if this property was to have been developed, a charge would have been made against it, and the property that the city is selling here would have paid around $30,000 to $35,000 as a contribution to that sewer line, which serves this land. In fact, the only line that can serve it. However, that wasn't done. There was no payment made by the city. The thing is passed now. There's no legal way of backing up on this type of thing. There is a degree of moral obligation here.
Hey, Walter, I suppose your department thought of the possibility of just buying the Honco land of the appraised price of $500 an acre for the Genesee Road, and then can we put up the parcel 1 for bid like the other 2 parcels? How would we come out that way?
Well, yes, I presume we could. This providing 2 things. One, Honco would have to then be willing to sell as an independent sale the right-of-way for $500. I question if they would be willing to do that. The other, of course, the city could also condemn the right-of-way as required for the road if it wished to do it. Our proposal in connection with parcel 1 on the negotiated base is to allow a decently planned development of that property, because if you look at it topography-wise, the land goes off steeply towards Torrey Pines Road. It is most difficult to lay out, as Jim Fairman can tell you, to lay out this property without the adjoining property being part of it and get a decent subdivision. And our interests, I think, are beyond just the sale of the land. Our interests ought to be in what's good development in the area. And this is why we have made this recommendation.
It would have a great effect if it's badly subdivided. It'd make a great effect on the adjacent property.
Yeah, the lower piece is surrounded by steep canyon and can be developed there. It's independent of any other land as far as its layout and development.
Well, I'm prepared to take your recommendation.
Put it on
The
the
revised recommendation. I think we ought to put it on the docket.
Speaker will proceed with that.
Well, what action do we need from the council?
It's got to be
just a
put on the
question.
docket.
If you instruct us to put it on the docket in this revised form, we'll do so.
Something on it.
Oh.
Well, there's nothing on it. It's a communication, Frank, to tail end.
Let's see, just for clarification, we instruct you here or in the chamber?
No, right here.
Right here.
Right here, all right.
You can go through it again and repeat it.
Moved the second that we instruct the city manager to put this on the docket for council consideration.
The revised recommendation.
The revised recommendation.
Who poisoned the coffee this morning?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Actually, I think you're maybe
Any other
a week
business?
or something in Patrick's got old coffee.
Well,
and
you
it's
want me to
dripped
give you a
down.
talk behind it?
Convention Visitor Bureau and the city. You asked that I contact Mr. Fletcher and find out why that paragraph was in the agreement. In talking to him, it was indicated that was put in at the request of the city council during budget session. This to cover the funds that were not part, the non-matched funds, and the new funds that were going to the Bureau. And he says, as far as he's concerned, this is a matter of council judgment that it was added in there as a result of direct request made by council during budget study session.
Well, I must have been absent that day.
Well,
Well, regardless of where it was, I think the feeling of the council expressed the other day was that it should be deleted.
Give them a free range, that's what you're saying?
Not on the other portion of this, and somebody should look at new programs to see what we're doing, but one of the points I think we should make is when this should be done. When should the evaluation be done? You can't evaluate a program before it starts.
Well, first of all, Walt, what measures do we have, or areas do we have in agreement of this sort, where we do, say, review their work? Is it through a report at the end of the year, or
they submit a report to the city at the end of the year, and also their invoices are audited. I mean, we make sure that the bills, payments the city are making cover specific expenditures.
Well, there's a difference between reporting and getting permission of. We let out a contract for a major street. We let out a contract to whether it was Griffin-Hagen Krager on the salary studies, or we have a lot of these things, and we do get reports and we check from time to time. But again, we don't go tell them what to do. They're professionals in the field. If we're the professionals, again, let's run the show and let's get in the business, which I would disagree with. But to be half in and half out, to me, seems wrong. I think what you're concerned with, Tom, is that if somebody really starts getting off a deep end or going in the wrong way, which does happen on some of these surveys and studies, and I think this advertising thing is somewhat along the same lines. I can't imagine what it would be that we would be concerned with, but still, if you're getting reports as to what they're doing and what magnitude, if they come in and start, for example, they show that they're advertising very heavily in the middle of the summer with a surplus money, and our intent was to be in the middle of the year, why then you'd have the report and you'd say, hey, what's happening here? But they don't have to get permission.
We've got a lot of similar allocations, all allocated by the council, the senior chamber, the junior chamber, and all these other groups. But I think probably the best example of it is the CIC. CIC was appropriated a certain amount of funds with no restrictions, and they were allocated to do a job with specifications. Initially, when they were first operating, they ran astray into political fields and to some other areas. And it was only at that time that the council called it in, and then we started spelling out in the contracts some exclusive features on areas that they couldn't get into, not areas that they would specifically act and how they would handle the program, but areas that, with city funds, that they could not include themselves. So I think, to the same extent, if the Convention and Tourist Bureau got into areas that we felt, as a city and so on, was not a proper use of city funds, then we would start to get into, say, possibly get into the consideration of the allocation at all, or an allocation with a certain amount of restrictions.
Well, that's the only kind of restriction I look toward, not restriction in management. Restriction in management, they're pros at that. Our area, just to see that the funds are diverted in that particular area, however they feel it should be administered.
Well, I move that since the manager has no objection to it, and the council seems to be in favor of the deletion, that the ordinance as proposed was continued to be put back on the docket with the deletion of the section F, where the manager would review the program and budget would be subject to the approval of the city manager.
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
adjourn.
Item 11,
Yeah.
page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on the sixth line. Now, I don't know actually how the resolution is drawn up, but as I read it, no new structures placed on vacant lots nor replacement. No new multi-unit, in short, multi-unit was supposed to be in between new structures there. This wasn't to stop R1 production or anything of this nature in the area.
It's not the way I understood when you first introduced it.
Well, that's the way I meant it, and that's the way I said it. So that's obviously somebody else misunderstood it, or I didn't say it, but that isn't what I meant. So I'm bringing it up now. The question is, do you agree or disagree that it should be in there? Because that's the thing that I want. There's no sense stopping remodeling. There's no sense stopping R1 construction, unless you distinctly want to agitate that one, but it isn't necessary to agitate.
In other words, your intention is stop the fourplexes too?
It says, it reads pretty clear, nominal remodeling and maintenance, and in addition there shall be no new multi-unit structures. Multi-unit would go in between.
No, that would also hit the R1 zone.
Oh?
There's a split levels and two levels.
I said multi, do you know what a multi-unit is?
I thought you said multi-level, I beg
No,
your
that's
pardon.
a unit.
Well, what do you consider four?
Multi.
Then you're stopping four units.
Yeah. Everything except what I'm trying to do, this would stop single unit, this would stop residential. If a man wants to build a house on an R1 lot, he couldn't do it. Now, there's no advantage in doing that, and there's a great disadvantage. So, I say, why have it in there? I mean, why not take that restriction off if not necessary? But again, this was suggested, as you recall, by the owners of the R4 property. So this gives the residents, the R1 residents, what they want, and it gives the R4 residents what they want. Or the property owners. So what do you think? I mean, we ordered it to be written up. I didn't, if it comes back in a different manner, why do we want to change it? I mean, I'll ask to have another one drawn up with that in it, so you can have two of them. I don't care.
Well, the attorney just did what they were instructed. They need new instructions.
What do you mean the attorney just did what they were instructed? Don't you think they've ever made a mistake?
That's what I thought the conversation was too.
What?
Well, don't you ever make a mistake?
That's right. That's right. I make lots of them. And that's why I say maybe they made one. Not
We all
possible?
made a mistake. Okay.
This is not the attorney's responsibility. The city clerk did this, and this is exactly your motion.
It is? All right. Obviously, you're right because you played the tape.
Yeah.
Okay. 3 times. Okay. So I still don't like it this way, and I mention it now. So, do people agree or disagree? Is it better or not? I mean, are we going to hang on a technicality, or are we going to try and do what is best? Now, is there a reason it should stay the way it is, or is there a reason we should have another one available?
Has the resolution been drafted?
Yeah.
I didn't get one. Where
I
is it?
didn't either.
On the back here, not. What item is it, Marvin?
It's 11.
Is it on here?
But I can get a copy.
I didn't get a copy.
I think we'll probably end up getting into enough things without haggling over something like this for a half hour in there. Well, why don't we go through the hearing in there and find out what the responses are, and if you wish to amend it, just amend it in there.
Well, this is going to really be someday.
Well, I'm sure if all of the minutes, remember the motion was made at one time, and then it was brought up a little bit later on, and I think also during the last hearing, the intention certainly was not to stop R1. Now, the only thing I'm getting at, yeah, we can, as I said, we can haggle it out in there, but I just didn't have the two resolutions, and I think we're the people who are going to be voting on them, and we should, this is internal, we should find out what we're going to want available in there. If we're going to want it available, why, fine. If we're going to start bringing these people up in the audience and commenting on it, well, we'll be there an extra hour or two.
I'm not quite sure. Was this part of another hearing? This,
Yeah.
Item 11 is in conjunction with another item.
It was the result of a hearing on the high-rise thing. On the short area. Separate action of the council instructing that this resolution be brought to the document.
But you're still in the process of your hearing.
Item 4.
This will be a new hearing.
New hearing?
Yeah.
Item,
on the
yeah,
resolution.
right. Item 4 may or may not take care of it when you get to it.
I would say so. However, the result of 4 could be adoption of 11 as a solution. I'm sure if there's no sense to have a hearing on both of them, I think they should be pulled together.
You're who the council would do it.
Let's see, what's your recommendation?
He wants to,
The moratorium, no permits then would be on R4 and commercial, correct?
Right.
I think they should be held separately.
Never get it off the ground.
I suppose the attorney should come in and they're not in here.
Actually, there's no advantage of any hearing on 11 that I can see, really. We're going to have all the hearing on 4, and we're going to discuss all the areas of how we can come up with some Solomon-like decision, I suppose, which won't work, but we can at least try. And this item 11 is merely one of the solutions, and if that is the direction that we decide to go after the hearing closes, why, we've pretty well established our reasons through 11, so 4 shouldn't have to be an elaborate hearing, I wouldn't think, if it is a hearing. In fact, I don't know why it's listed as a hearing.
4 is a continued hearing.
No, it is not. I mean, 11 isn't. 11 isn't.
or
It's a resolution.
attorney's not here, but I'm sure that you would have to have a hearing.
Correct.
He requested it.
It had to be advertised, didn't it?
You're depriving people of a right, and then you damn well better have a hearing.
Okay.
I'm sure it's legally
Then if that's the case, it has to be separate, if that logic follows.
Well, it could be followed right behind the other one if you want to. Probably one of the smartest thing the council could do this morning would be to, if this is their thinking, if they want to give them a moratorium, would be to on 4 is make the previous request and this request is for the universal thing all in one, and do it and get it over. Whatever you're gonna do.
Of course, I disagreed with that because I was the one that went to the split. I can see some logic in one area and I can't see the other. Because everybody here is in agreement in one solution. That's on this one. That isn't true citywide.
I just hope they don't use that argument.
Well, let's hear it in there, then we're not going to get anywhere here.
Voted against the general plan. I don't see why we should wait for an area plan.
Of course, you could take the other position, that now that there is no general plan, let's use having an area plan, period. Forget the
I think we'll decide this on the right.
4 and 11, and if it's agreeable with the council at the completion of 4, we go to 11?
Take 11 out of order following 4, is what you're saying? Yeah.
I think both 4 and 11 are out of order.
Well, let's see, what's between?
They will be before the morning comes.
Well, you got the same people involved in both of them.
I understand there's a request for 5 to be continued.
That's right.
Agreed to by
Well,
both
instead of
parties.
going right into 11 and prolong that, I think we, since there's a request on 5, we might act on that.
May I suggest then, because of numbers of people who are going to be around on both of these this morning, that be announced first, before any hearing?
That's 4 and 11 be pulled together?
No, that 5
5 be
is to be continued.
It is to be continued?
There's a request
Yeah.
agreed to by both parties for continuance.
How long?
2
I
weeks,
don't
as I
know, 2 weeks.
understand. How about, on 9, there'll be a number equal?
Well, my thought was, these people wouldn't have to wait around till after the
Right.
hearing on
Number
4.
6 was that also requested for continuance? Huh?
No, there is no request to have it continued from this docket.
From this docket, there was a request.
Which one was it? 6.
Okay.
Well, Dan has it that now. Better than the other groups.
I get to
Page
5.
4.
Okay.
Huh?
I got one on 5. On 16, what's the estimated cost?
Well, we're still on 4, aren't we?
Well, I asked if there's nothing there.
On 4, what?
Well, then the mayor is going to 5 again. Number
Oh, that's
17.
all right, Frank.
Yes, sir.
Let's see, this is in regards to that, are we doing some work out there now?
The Port District is presently doing some work.
Yes,
This will allow us to proceed with the grading of the interchange in order that any settlements that will take place in these ramps that go up to the overhead structures can take place before the paving is done.
We grade it and let it sit.
Yeah, grade it first and leave it sit and do the paving after the structure is completed.
Okay.
This is, council will recall, a cooperative job with the Port District. Port District paying half of it, city half of it.
Page 5. 16, Harry?
Yeah. What's the
Cost on
difference?
16 is $14,000. Estimated cost.
Yeah, okay.
Page 6.
What conclusion have you made with the state?
On item 100,
100?
our traffic engineering people have been meeting with the state engineers in connection with this. They have come up with a decision which we feel will be a practical one. The state has asked that if at all possible the freeway agreement not be held up because it is affecting their proceeding with design work. They have agreed that there ought to be something done to define the word justified by traffic. They are willing to put in a letter, an agreement, traffic figures agreed to by our traffic people as well as their own, specifying traffic demand for the ramp so that it's an actual figure. In addition, they're willing to put in a letter their estimate as to the year when they feel that traffic figure will be reached. And in addition, they are willing to state that the Division of Toll Bridge Crossings will set up a sinking fund in order to finance the ramps at the time they are needed. This letter to be signed by Mr. Bradford as State Administrator of the State Transportation Agency. We feel this would do the job and not hold them up in unwarranted manner. Now, we don't have the letter yet. It obviously has to go through their procedure and go up to the director and be signed by him and come back down.
So you're satisfied then that our request for at least spelling out more clearly in the agreement that we'll have the possibility for these additional interchanges, or?
Oh yes, I would say with this agreement reached, we are being assured that they will be built, and that they will be built at a time that reasonable traffic demand makes them necessary.
When do you think this will come up?
Marty indicated that he felt we'd have an answer in 2 weeks. Now, we can either continue this matter for 2 weeks, or you can go on the basis of the assurances that have been given and approve this, and we bring the letter back up at a later time.
I see no reason for holding it up. Just get back to us if we do have a chance and what you consider agreeable. Okay?
Fine.
101. Have we changed it?
101.
We deleted the
Approval by the city manager is out.
of the program and the okay.
Page 6.
On 102, is there anything in this agreement with this building about keeping it up? What's their responsibility?
Same old contract.
They don't do any maintenance on the building, or?
The same old contract. We're always subsidizing it by $6,500.
Yeah, our subsidy agreement is $6,800, not to exceed that. Last year they used $59.82 out of it, actually.
Your Honor, it seems to me that 102, since it is a renewal, it has public acceptance. It's a good idea not to disturb it.
That would be our recommendation.
I don't remember the 68. I thought it was
102.
spent on it.
It's a not to exceed that amount, and it's been that, yeah. This is no change in the amount.
It was reduced about 3 or 4 years ago from what, 8,500 or something. We're gonna try to make it self-sustaining, but we have to. Page 6.
On 105, see, is this just a matter of cancellation of the date?
Yes, the total fee is not changed in any way, as I understand it. Mabel, go ahead.
On 105, well, totally changed.
Just commit you an extra $50,000 is all. There is.
Total fee is not changed. Total takes you further along the schedule.
The stadium hasn't gone up in price then, huh?
No, it's good.
Line 106.
106.
I think you have a report from us on that.
Still need an explanation.
You want to report on the report, Jack? Okay.
We provide 106 and 107 are together.
This is
Yeah.
a continuing program?
Yeah. We provide the facilities and they reimburse us for everything except rent. And
That's right. Actually, the 106 is for the 3-month program. And then we have to enter into this other agreement in order to set up the program to go on. Actually, we have been working toward the ultimate of this program being one that the city's not directly involved in. And, so I hope that the year following this, next fiscal year, that this might be a possibility.
Land, is this the
parkland.
the parkland and the downtown area? Is that a dedicated park or is it a designated park?
Dedicated.
Sure is an eyesore.
Columbian G, yeah.
Yeah, just a parking.
Is that Piccolo? Piccolo Park.
Strange use for a park.
We had our city office,
In the corner, on the other corner.
a blood bank in there for a long time. It's been everything but a park.
Boy, if it's no good for a park, why don't we take it and sell it and put a park in our spot?
Had to go to the vote of the people to have it removed. I don't know.
Is it a dedicated
This is
park?
no, wait a minute. This is a goodie that you might be cautious on and refer it to the attorney because I think this was one we checked out once before that has a peculiar dedication in it. I'm not
Reversionary clause back to the years.
Yeah, something of that sort that might get it. This goes way back.
So it might be really a good idea to give it back to them.
Goes back to the wartime, doesn't it?
Oh, long
Way
before
before
that.
that. Goes back, like a real flu. Oh.
Could we get a report or
On the property and so
on the property and buildings and so on?
Because of the fact they're no good as a park, it might be cost us a lot of money to get it back in the tax roll. It's gotta be
Qualifies as
Pardon?
open space, that's about it.
Want to refer to the attorney and check it out and see what it is. The thing status of it. I think once before we checked it out and run into a problem with the way it was dedicated.
How much longer do we have to make up a decision on 110 now that we got the report yesterday?
28th is the
Doesn't
last
have to
day.
be made today.
28th, that would be
110.
next
Tuesday, I think.
he says the 28th is the last day. Exercise.
Your Honor,
Is that
on
Tuesday?
on 110, this renewal was budgeted.
Right.
Budgeted in this year's budget.
Right.
So, because it comes twice in 1 year, and doesn't the funds to promote it come from the hotel motel tax?
Unappropriate.
How far off were we in the budget this year from the actual from the budget?
We have well, it's 19,751 of the 25 that's shown in the budget there.
We budgeted 25, we used 19, or we spent 25 and budgeted 19.
We budgeted
25
50. We budgeted 50.
Hatchet, right. 25 and 30 for each pass, it's 50 total for the two.
So we have carryover or non-used funds on the first one of about 6,000.
Is there any recommendations of any changes? Because we have the option to renew each year, right? We also have the option to negotiate.
But you must exercise an option prior to any changes in the agreement. If we should try to negotiate the agreement at this point, it might destroy the effectiveness of the option. That's why
That's a nice way to operate.
we've got some questions.
Sign the contract and then discuss it?
No, we have a contract with them, and in the contract, there is an option clause. Now, you exercise your option on that contract as it is. You don't change the contract and then try to exercise your
If I
option.
give them the fee that they require in the contract,
Well, we want,
renegotiate for the following year after that, apparently.
as you know, I had some strong reservations before we went into it. I think the overall effect is good as far as the publicity and promotion goes. But last time when we went into it, we had all of the lodging and everything else committed beforehand as far as donated, the hotels, the automobiles, and everything like that, which we placed a value on that would put this project, way out of line if we didn't have it. Do we have the same commitment now?
Yeah, we've got practically the same commitments now. The only part of it that hasn't been completely filled out is the business of lodging, and Mr. Fletcher was carrying that on himself. He's, of course, out of town at the moment. He saw no problem in it. I expect none.
Last time we required a letter of intent or something from some of the hotels to give an indication, because we put the thing on and then came up with the lodging and the automobiles and all of that.
Is that our responsibility to supply those things as the term of the contract?
Yeah, he saw no problem in this, and we don't either. Something all the other commitments are made.
Junior, see any problems with the lodging? Let's also think about the tremendous good that this did for the image of San Diego. We've got some ambassadors of goodwill floating around the country on account of this.
Letters upstairs that say they're not on to get duplicating the pass out to the council. Pardon me. Not to influence your decision here, but I think we're getting quite a feedback already.
Well, I'm definitely sold on the program as 1/7 of this council. I wouldn't like to see anything about it disturbed, because the overall good is too good to fool around with.
I just having something ran through my mind, Alan.
Yes.
You're running for reduction in job from 1/7 to 1/9 of the council.
Yes. Well, if I'm here next year, I'll refer to being 1/9. But this year, I'm still 1/7.
They're spreading this thin, Alan.
We've been kicking this around because I've had a lot of reservations about this, and I generally agree with some of the comments. I was probably too close to it. But one of the things that I had asked for prior to completing the docket was a statement of the financial situation, which I haven't seen as yet.
It's in the report, isn't it?
Not what I asked for.
When you get in...
And secondly, I asked for a check with these hotels, because some of them have participated previously are not happy. And these are the two things I asked for before this came on the docket, neither of which I have. Now, I noticed on this that there still are some outstanding obligations. Is this included in your figure, Julian, assuming that we're going to pick these up?
Included in the 19,751 figure.
Well, no, at the bottom of page 1, that lists $8,000 outstanding obligations.
No, that figure
Still to be negotiated.
any total.
So,
The bills making up the 8,000, we can add up to, well, not quite, 7,796 have been sent to Mrs. America. I would think this thing would look like any advertising program, and I don't think you can look at them as such a real short term, especially when they don't get a full shot at the program, and they didn't.
they did it, it was short.
So with this, I would never think of starting an advertising program, and before you get a chance to see what it's going to do, chop it off. And I think this is basically what was involved in the Convention and Tourist Bureau, having the manager out of it. In short, they say they can do it with a certain amount of cooperation of the city, and the cooperation spelled out in the contract or the obligation. I think it's brought out right now that I think this is well committed and well on its way. I think it'd really be cutting our throat. Whether we're right or we're wrong, we'd be cutting our throat doing anything with this because we wouldn't know, we wouldn't see what the results are. However, right after this contract is signed, then is the time to be analyzing and for negotiations, and there should be a real progressive report on this for the item coming up in the budget, which we're going to be into when? Another 4 or 5 months. We're going to start in the budget, and then we'll be talking about the one following this.
And Mr. Mayor, I think we have to point out, this was a new undertaking on the part of the city. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect the first go-around. It's a complex type of thing, something we've never got involved in before. There were problems. We have to admit it. We're trying to work those out.
Well, I had just a question on a couple of the items in the rural financial. On the concourse rental, that's not included in the 1975-1?
No.
And the acquisition is 3242 in capital items and equipment. How does that get tied into the pageant?
Well, this is a recurring item.
We have this in...
I mean, it's a recurring need which was capitalized in one throw.
Now, we have this in storage now, or...
We're talking about $9,000 in there, in addition to the 19, in addition to the 8,000 outstanding down below. I don't recall, or maybe we did. Did we approve capital improvements in the?
Well, when somebody tells me this thing costs $19,000, I assume it costs $19,000. Now, is Jack right? Is it 19 plus the capital improvements?
Plus the rent.
Plus the rent. Plus
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know what the thing is. How much is it costing?
This was in the original agreement presented to this council, which I report at that time set out that we were going to do these things.
Okay. With that report, how much is the thing costing us? You know, just what's it costing us?
All right, let me
We're signing a contract.
break it
Marty,
down.
want to give me a
The
copy of the
5185 rental fee, which is shown in the report, was originally submitted from the concourse subdivision last year.
Okay, what all this, just tell me how much it's going to cost. Don't have to go through all this, just give me the numbers now.
If we add up all the figures on this sheet,
All the costs, yes,
you'll get 28,878
28,878.
plus 8 owed by Mrs. America. So that will add to 36,878.
Well, that's not costing us. How much is it costing us?
They will.
28,878.
Well, that includes all the capital funds, everything. So it's 28, it's not 19.
Well, the 19,751 figure is the figure that's charged against the $25,000 budgeted by us. The other figures are not us. The other figures, for example, the 3242 is CFC, capital item.
CFC,
Civic
Civic
Facilities
Facilities
Corporation.
which we will subsidize in turn, so if they give them 10, we'll turn around and give them 10 back, so let's face it, it's a cost. Isn't it?
Well, if they get the subsidy from the city.
Let
me say capital item, they say by the city, but currently it's not.
Put it real clearly, what Harry wants to know, if no one else is involved in it, if somebody came in and put on the pageant and paid all of the bills that came in, what was the total cost of the pageant?
28,878.
Well, we don't have any
24,932.
idea because Mrs. America paid a lot of the ongoing and pre-pageant promotional costs.
Yeah,
We
but
don't know what they're
we had a cost to them, didn't we? 15,000. Okay, period. 15,000 plus 1,200, right? Okay, so that's 16,200. There's one expense. All right, then all of the expenses that they didn't pay, that we paid, rental, equipment, promotion, anything else, how much does that add up to?
That'll all add up to 28878.
And that 8,000 is an expense that they gotta pay out of their 15, is that right?
And when you wait, that 8,000 has not yet been established as who is to pay what exactly at this time.
The corporation has been billed for it.
See, we,
Yes, has been billed, but has not yet been established to what portion exactly.
According to your own words, recommendation on the payment of these statements shall be made following detailed negotiations between the city and Mrs. America.
Well, I don't know why this can't be made kind of clear. I mean, I don't see why we have to, I mean, that's 28,878 is the cost. Next year, we're talking about $9,000 more than that, right? Because you told me we really spent 19 as against the 25, but when we add the other cost of the 19, so you add the difference back in there, don't you?
If they go to network television next year, the original commitment would be the full 25, 15 plus 10 for network television. Then any other of the cost would be the same as this year, back through the Concourse Subsidy Fund for rental, for example, that kind of accounting.
Well, at this point, I'm not gonna argue the thing because I think that the council generally agreed at the time that we went into this, that we would try it for 3 times and give them a chance to go. Let's find out if it would work. But the very thing you're talking about is the big argument I had with Tom Fletcher at the time we went into it. I said, those damn costs should be spelled out. The contract said facilities to be provided, period. Whatever facilities. But I'm not gonna bring up that argument again now because the council and management overruled that concept at the time and said, let's get into it and try it for three go-arounds. So I think we're committed to go for
Your Honor, we're committed to an $80,000 subsidy to the Facilities Corporation. And then when it got out of line in the first year, and we had the problems and the misunderstandings and the figures in the wrong place, we didn't wait very long to call them in. And that's the same thing I'm saying here, is that we're committed maybe for 8-9 years with a good contract with a real desirable package. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't then sit on top of some of these figures and iron them out. There's a misunderstanding.
we certainly don't want any misunderstanding. We dig up any figures you want on it. I thought we had them all here.
Well, I'd kind of like to see them on a ledger sheet laying across. I can look at them a lot better.
Well, we try to set them out the way, as I understand it, pretty much the way they were set out in the agreement. Facilities were called for that we provided.
Of course, I don't see any figure like $28,000 on this sheet, and it must be a desirable figure because Julian has them on the back of his, you know, like maybe he thought they were necessary, so why aren't they necessary for us, sort of thing?
All right, why don't we continue to Tuesday and get back a copy of the agreement with the budget on it, and then we look at what we spent and put the items down alongside of it. And that would make it real clear cut. We can see exactly what the thing costs.
We got a new game. We got a new game here at City Hall. Get the total. Get it.
Well, I think the problem here,
Mr. Manager, please explain what you think.
we certainly can give you a whole sheet here. We try to arrange this sheet to show those costs being charged against the amount appropriated and budgeted, and set forth in the agreement. Now, we can show the amounts that are in indirectly, you might say, where they are facilities and the rest of it. We can list them all and be happy to do it.
Well, there's one liability that's sitting here, and it was hit before, and I think this paragraph, the outstanding obligations that is at this date are approximately $8,000 and are for labor, rental, blah, 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 above the original anticipated amount. Recommendation on the payment of these statements will be made following detailed negotiations between the city and Mrs. America Incorporated. In short, what are you willing to settle for? I mean, this seems like it could be anywhere between $0 and $8,000.
No, we don't know yet. It's hard to give you an answer on something we don't have a defined answer at this point.
Well, it's pretty hard for us to
We
say whether it's
sent-
a good deal
we
or a bad
sent-
deal with figures like
We've
this.
sent them the bill. We haven't received any acknowledgement as yet as to whether there's going to be a dispute on it.
Is there
Now, if
anything,
they pay it, then it's that.
is there anything in
No
the
problem.
contract protecting us in this thing? I mean, do we have to go ahead with the renewal until these things are resolved?
No, it's our position that they owe the dough, owe the money.
Next,
Based upon on the contract.
next question, while we're getting the report back, could you verify, someone called me and said that the film that we approved on was only shown in New Jersey. And we got an indication here that show was shown in Chicago, Columbus, Salt Lake City, Philadelphia, New York, Washington DC, and that's easy to check.
I think we have certification on that.
Kirby be going next Tuesday?
Yes.
Well, you'll be going too, won't you? That'll be a 5 We have a question that we want to answer before you kick this over to next Tuesday, and that is, that's the last day. We're not clear the form of the exercise of the option, whether the evidence of our exercise has to be in the hands of these people on the 28th.
Meet Monday.
Your Honor, may I say
Well,
something?
we find these things out before we sign the contract the first time.
We discussed this very thoroughly and agreed to the budget for the 2 years. I'm afraid that what we're getting into is now will spoil the continuity of what we have agreed to before. So I think we should go ahead with this item today, and then in any succeeding years, before we go into budgeting again, take a look at it. But the overall good accomplished by this for San Diego, I don't like to see the continuity disturbed. And I think we went into this very thoroughly when we went into this budget item, and I just hate to see this.
That's the way I feel about it. No, we've been to it. Let's swim, let's not.
Well, I can see, I agree with this. I'm concerned about this contract, whether it isn't very clear yet. 6 months ago, we drew the thing up. I mean, who drew the
This contract was drawn up in a matter of 1 or 2 days. This whole activity proving the Mrs. America contest was something that was handled very quickly.
Had to be.
Had to be, or we lost it to another city.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I
And-
mean, the option aspect, this is not an unusual thing in
No.
contracts, is it? So I'm asking the question, why is it unclear as to what the effect of it is on the timing? I mean, why is this a big sticky problem?
There's nothing sticky about that,
Well,
about the option. The option
It's
must be
in there.
exercised by September 28th, period.
Well, I think that there's a real problem in here. I know I've been tormented in the office now about 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks by an individual who has been offered the franchise for California. His acceptance of that franchise and getting going on next May's contest is contingent on whether or not we're going to have it. Whether we're going to have the contest here. If it isn't, he isn't interested. If he is, he's going to go out and promote the statewide contest. And he's waiting for us to make up our mind.
That's right.
And this is true probably in a lot of the other areas. And the reason for the third day, or the immediate contract, immediate exercise of options, which is not necessarily a new contract. The immediate exercise of options designates the locations for the thing so that these various sub-contracts that are around the country can be put in operation.
Okay, well, these are problems that we do have. The answer is going to come up in a day. However, we are going to have another contract before us next year, and I would hope that the council
We go to work on that one.
I would hope that the council is going to have to sit here and say, well, what's going to happen? And well, we got the same thing. I think it should be cleared up.
Sure. Draw a new contract.
And then next year, when the contract comes before us on Friday for approval on Tuesday, then we'll say we'll get it in the next budget. Now's the time we're signing it, now's the time we should ask the questions and look at the darn thing.
I'm not signing any contract.
We're exercising the option.
And we should be questioning, that's when I say the questions should come up on it.
Maybe we should have had it on the docket, 3 or 4 weeks before. Probably the answer.
Well, we couldn't, because we wouldn't have had any of these figures. So that's one of the problems. You people asked that our office bring the figures. The figures were not available till of recent date. In fact, all of them. You've asked us about this $8,000. We feel they owe it. payment hasn't been completed. We don't have a defined answer on it. We've tried to put together here every single bit of it that we
Fine,
can
but
give
why
you.
in the contract cannot be a requirement that the figures get in? Like, who's holding the figures up?
Well, excuse me, I just, from thinking back, I think that $8,000 that was reported during the course of the event, that involves some of the electrical equipment, special equipment that would come up, and special labor, things that were not anticipated, and there was some possible disagreement that since this equipment is permanent, the city will reap the long-run advantages of it because it becomes our property, but yet it was made specially for this particular show. And these are the negotiating, the areas where we're trying to specify as to the responsibility of these fixtures and the equipment. And at this point, we have charged them for it, saying that we never would have made these equipment only because of the show. And they feel that perhaps we can use it in the future, perhaps we should pay for it. So there is an area where we have to perhaps negotiate if it should come up. Now that's that $8,000.
You see, this show is coming at an odd time, this one time. And this, I think, was why we were in this real rough position of moving rapidly if we even wanted the show. Next year it will come at a different time, and that's why we entered into the agreement at one time for both shows with an option to call to give the city some leeway. The option requirement was put in there. Next year's show will be in May rather than in August as of this year. And unfortunately, in order to program the show and do the things as the mayor has indicated, get the statewide contest going, they had to have a fairly early answer. So the option, it called for the city to exercise its option comparatively soon after the show was put on.
Okay. Question of the manager. On these installations that have gone in there, is it normal for us to approve capital investment in the concourse?
Well, it's the Community Facilities Corporation. They have to approve the acquisition of these items as capital items.
But don't we have to approve the capital items that they install? Over $1,000?
Well, like they put a new dishwasher in over there, we voted on it the other day, you know?
They put in new heating equipment, we vote on it. They put in kitchen equipment, we vote on it. Is that right? The only question I'm asking, did we vote on these items that are already in, that were put in for the pageant that we're now paying for? The problem is not the Mrs. America pageant. The problem here is twofold. Number one, on procedures, and number two, on the type of information we're getting.
Let me have Julian answer you, because I think you're confusing two completely different types of items here. One, a capital improvement from to the structure, and the other items which are special equipment and don't fall, pots, pans, utensils, this type of thing.
It's our understanding, Jack, that these are 250 fund items, original equipping, included primarily electrical cable and electrical terminal boxes and that sort of thing. Sewer sump for the washers that the building needed. And in fact, they've used them since then. They used all that electrical equipment over again for the Ford show, for example.
So this puts us in the area of still working out how much of this.
But these, excuse me, my question is.
He didn't answer your question.
Is it a normal expense that we still have to, I don't care what it is, it's an expense. Is this an expense that normally has to come before the council? The only thing I'm concerned about, Walter, here
Yeah, I can understand.
do we have a pre-commitment, like things that are installed and then we approve a budget and pay for something that should have come before the council in the routine order at that time and we approve it? Or does someone just go ahead and slap it in and say, okay, now let's go to the council for approval?
What you're talking about, who is responsible for this $8,000? There's three people involved here, apparently. The Community Facilities Corporation.
That's different sums now. This isn't the 8,000.
Well, he's talking about the 3240.
I'm talking about the 32.
42.
Yeah. Because, I mean, let's face it, it all hasn't been rosy since we got in there. We had to step in the beginning and we straighten out, we got things organized, or they got things organized.
This is the type of thing, as I understand, the Community Facilities Corporation would normally do out of their funds, with without acceptance by this council.
In other words, if they go out for $1,000 worth of light bulbs, they don't have to come to the council.
Yeah, or this cabling, for example, they put in all kind of cabling prior to this coming up on their own. It's absolutely necessary to the operation of the facility.
It's kind of like Starlight Opera, you know, they run themselves, except when they run short, they come down and say, here, we're bad, will you help us? I mean, you know, and that's basically the same thing here. We're the pigeon that's sitting around. Like my wife, she has her own money until she runs out.
Mine too, man.
Well, actually, then, going into next year, you see no problem with the pageant coming in May, that we will have the numbers before us, that the contract will be cleared up and renegotiated so that it will be... Looking forward at next year, so we won't be going around the table the same way, the contract can be fixed up and the arrangements can be brought forward so that when we sit down and talk next year, we will have it before us in plenty of time, and also that the contract will be in clear, understood shape so that we know which way we're going and the numbers to check will be here.
That's my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's get everybody's
I think
opinion.
we can write into any new agreement or contract, providing Mr. America still wants to deal with this too, because this is a two-sided thing.
Well, yes.
We can write in those types of provisions which we feel are necessary. Then we're going to have to see if they agree to the addition of those types of provisions.
Well, but I think we're mainly concerned as to whether we want to exercise the privilege of the option that is before us.
That's the question today.
And then let's get into the manager's, let's say, to some thinking, inability to produce a good report of the whole pageant. Perhaps we could go into that at a later date, but the option is an option as a rule is always to the advantage of the to us. Whoever has the so-called franchise, usually.
Okay.
One of the things we got here is $3,200 for special equipment, and in the first paragraph of the agreement, it spells out that the corporation will conduct Miss Merge contests thereafter both pageants during the week showing itself, and shall provide all the special equipment and maintain the adequate staff to accomplish the presentation. So, to me, it would indicate that any special equipment involving the pageant, if it weren't any otherwise, would be subject to, and would be an expense subject to the corporation. So that's one area that question might arise. And this is where I think maybe some footnotes or some explanation on the thing might be in line. We talked about the $15,000, which is fine, but out of that $15,000, I may have to pay all some of the other expenses. But I see us getting into a heck of a lot more expenses than $15,000. Not that it's wrong. The only thing I like to do is, see where they are and have them.
Let's tell them out. If they're justified, let's increase the budget.
Right.
But I think the problem before us today is whether or not we exercise the option, and the terms and negotiations of the contract itself can be disputed and argued and adjusted from here on in.
I see two things. I see the option, I agree with that, and I see the other problem, it's a real problem, we have questions, and we should solve that question, solve the cause of the questions or the answers to be available in time for us to properly act next year. Now, if it requires change in the contract or in the accounting procedures to get the report, the information of the manager so he can give us a report, I think this is the obligation of the attorney's office and management to get the stuff to us and get us on the docket so that we aren't in this position. Now, I can understand why it's this way this year because it's a short bridge. I will not be able to understand next year why this is before us properly.
Well,
Fair?
Just strike the word attorney's office in your comments. We had nothing to do with this matter coming before you. You didn't write the contract up? We did. Oh, okay. Questions, I'll move that we adjourn.
Okay, we got a long document behind that. We just have to take it easy when we get to it. Alrighty.
On this 114, it's zoning board of appeals. Board of appeals for 550, 114, 112, both of them.